you struggling with minorities? Are you constantly having to deal with the others in your neighborhood? Did you move out to the suburbs in hope that everybody would look like you and also have the same thoughts and prayers as you? Are you finding that there are some people that just need to be helped, that need to be saved from themselves? Come to the American Redoubt. There's a future for you, right here in the American Redoubt, right past the border of Canada, and right past the border of Washington. Come to the American Redoubt. Enjoy the vistas. Enjoy the lack of diversity. Enjoy the oppression. It's yours to wield as you wish in the Redoubt. For far too long, we've watched these beautiful visions of patriotism being snuffed out by windmills. These treacherous windmills ruthlessly taking the life of these majestic patriots. How could we stand by and let all this happen? We needed to do something. A change had to come. Luckily, a man showed up. A man showed up and saved the Eagles. And that man's name was Donald J. Trump. In 2016, the savior of this symbol of America came. And all of a sudden, the eagle population was on the rise again. Never in the history of the world has anybody ever seen such population growth. This man truly was sent by a higher power to grow this population of American symbolism, to bring all of these like-minded, white-headed eagles together, to grow when they were once shrinking. These white-headed patriots found themselves flourishing with this guy. Fucking hilarious. Do you find yourself attracted to somebody that looks a lot like you? That goes to the bathroom in the same place you do? That maybe plays on the same sports team? Are you strangely attracted to the other men in the locker room? If so, come on down to the evangelical church, where we will help you. We're here to help you take those attractions away. We just want to help save you from eternal damnation and hellfire with Toby. We understand how hard it must be thinking that you're attracted to somebody on your team. Come down to the evangelical church. We're just one conversion therapy away from freedom.
Republicans seem to support one fella, America's new dad, some guy named Brandon. He's having a really good year. America's new dad, some guy named Brandon. He's having a really good year, and I'm kind of happy for him. Why in the hell are we still doing this? There's one reason why it's great to be here again. The party's too extreme, too divisive, too controlled by one person. They say that's not your father's Republican Party. Ronald Reagan said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear this wall down. Today's Republicans say, tear down Mickey Mouse's house. Mickey Mouse's house. Why in the hell are we still doing this? The Republicans seem to support one fella. And pretty soon they'll be storming Cinderella's castle, you can be sure of it. The party's too extreme, too divisive. Tonight, we come here to answer a very important question in everybody's mind. The Republicans seem to support one fella, America's new dad, some guy named Brandon. America's new dad. Why in the hell are we still doing this? America's new dad. And I'm kind of happy for him. Another question about whether we should gather here tonight because of COVID. Well, we're here to show the country that America's new dad, some guy named Brandon, he's having a really good year. Why in the hell are we still doing this?
For far too long, we've allowed the vicious heteros to indoctrinate our children and endanger the safety of our loved ones. We've allowed this to go on at a pace that is accelerating. It's time that we ban Beauty and the Beast, because that is a man and a woman trying to set the stage that all relationships must be like this. It's time. It's time we stand up against this princess and this prince fantasy. It's time to end. We must ban all these Disney movies like Lion King, where it was a male and a female. We must ban Nemo because it was a mother and a father. This endless hetero indoctrination must come to an end. Oh, this country is in trouble.
Somehow.
Are you struggling with minorities? Are you constantly having to deal with the others in your neighborhood? Did you move out to the suburbs in hope that everybody would look like you and also have the same thoughts and prayers as you? Are you finding that there are some people that just need to be helped, that need to be saved from themselves? Come to the American Redoubt. There's a future for you, right here in the American Redoubt, right past the border of Canada and right past the border of Washington. Come to the American Redoubt. Enjoy the vistas. Enjoy the lack of diversity. Enjoy the oppression. It's yours to wield as you wish in the Redoubt. For far too long, we've watched these beautiful visions of patriotism being snuffed out by windmills. These treacherous treacherous windmills, ruthlessly taking the life of these majestic patriots. How could we stand by and let all this happen? We needed to do something. A change had to come. Luckily, a man showed up. A man showed up and saved the Eagles. And that man's name was Donald J. Trump. In 2016, the savior of this symbol of America came. And all of a sudden, the eagle population was on the rise again. Never in the history of the world has anybody ever seen such population growth. This man truly was sent by a higher power to grow this population of American symbolism, to bring all of these like-minded, white-headed eagles together, to grow when they were once shrinking. These white-headed patriots found themselves flourishing with this guy. Fucking hilarious. Do you find yourself attracted to...
All right, let's do this. Let's just go ahead. Let's just do it. Let's just get started. There's almost nobody here, which is fine. People show up eventually. What up, Vaccine Baby? How you doing? How you doing, baby? Let's get it, baby. Get him, boy. Get him, boy. Get that motherfucker, boy. Ever since before the Diddy raid, I guess right around the time Lil Rod filed his lawsuit, I started paying attention to Diddy. We had done some stuff on Diddy before the raid. And then we watched the raid live, and I don't do much of it on stream, but I have been watching all these crazy updates. And it's wild. There's so much going on. There's like tapes of Drake leaking now. Jaguar Wright said Usher they literally tore his asshole apart, which is why he had to go to the hospital. Like it is absolutely crazy what's been going on. And the fact that this Kendrick beef might have wrapped Drake in all of it, like, because nobody was paying attention. I mean, Shane Gillis said in 2019 Drake's gonna get arrested like R. Kelly. So I mean, it's like an open secret. But 2024 seems to be a bad year to be like a sex pest pedophile. Canadian, we're watching more to go down in Drake's mansion. Well, just the simple idea that like the cover for that track was Drake's quote unquote embassy with all those fucking child predator tags. Fucking Kendrick destroyed him. Like, I've probably watched 20 different creators react to Not Like Us. So and it's funny how many of them pick up something that somebody else doesn't. But like within seconds, everybody starts dancing and they're like, I'm not gang affiliated, but I want a crip walk. Like, I saw 4 different dudes all say the same thing, like, oh my God, I'm not gang affiliated, I want a crip walk.
It's off the hook. Um, but yesterday, which a lot of times we try to do Sunday services, um, I just had a lot going on in my mind, and so I didn't do it. And instead, I went and played golf. And while I was out playing golf, this happened. What up, Lurking?
Let's go! I see dead people.
Mustard on a beat, yo. Mustard on a beat, ho.
Any rap nigga, he a freak though. Man down, call like Amber Lambs. Tell him breathe, bro. Nail a nigga to the cross, he walk around like Tito. What's up with these jabroni ass niggas trying to see Compton? The industry can hate me, fuck them all and they mama. How many options you really got? I mean, it's too many options. I'm finna pass on this body, I'm John Stockton. Beat your ass and hide the Bible if God watching. Sometimes you gotta pop out and show niggas. Certified boogeyman, I'm the one that up to score with him. Walk him down whole time, I know he got some hoe in him. Pole on him, extort shit, bully the flow on him. Say Drake, I hear you like I'm young. You better not ever go to cell block one. Some lighter fluid.
Yeah, I'm working my way through everything. Like, there's just so... The problem for me is, not only is, do I have this, there's, like, religious groups I'm deeply researching, and I can't ever remember his name, but I'm just learning one of the guys that was indicted in Arizona as part of the Trump side of the fake electors. He's got like a lot of close ties to militias, QAnon, far right shit. And I just learned that recently. So now I'm having to go back. No, that's not his name. I'm having to go back and reread it, like relook at everything because he's in it. Hold on, I'll look up his name real quick. I've been sending some messages back and forth about him. I've been getting information. Where is he? Mike Roman, and then another name that just came up from all that was what's his name? Where is it? John McEntee. He's indicted. Well, I don't think if he is, he's recently indicted in Arizona. In the new indictment that came down that we read on stream. Wait. I'm not sure he was indicted in Georgia. Yeah, so like there's so much going on that even though I know a shit ton, I'm missing a lot. And so with all like love to everybody, this unfolding white supremacist shit as a non-white supremacist and as a Jew, this is like one of the things I keep my eyes on, especially as you watch the Christian nationalists who support the Proud Boys, the neo-Nazis, the white supremacists, the Klan. They're claiming the protectors of anti-Semitism, and the libs are agreeing with them on the Israel stuff. And if the libs start to agree with the fucking Nazis, I'm out of here. I'm fucking gone. I'll visit Canada while I learn Spanish. Go to Uruguay. So yeah, hole in one yesterday. That was pretty fucking wild. I started playing in 6th grade. I was on the team all through high school, but I wasn't like top on the team. You know, you have like 8 people that play, so you have like 4 foursomes. The top 5 people actually count, and I was always like 7 or 8, so I got to play with no like worry about my score because it didn't really matter. But back then I was like a mid-80s golfer in high school as somebody that like didn't really count. And you got to be mid-70s to be any fucking good. But I'd never had a hole in one like 36 years. Probably played over 1,000 par threes. And finally, I wasn't even really thinking about it. I quit taking practice swings because I've been practicing on the range and I don't really need them. And yeah, I didn't even know it went in. I just thought it was close, and I wanted to take a video of how close it was. And as I got closer, I'm like, "Where's my ball?" What up, Mulder? Mulder, did you see it? Did you see it? I'll play it again.
I see dead people. Hey, must have on the beat, ho, Debo, any rap nigga, he a freak though, man down.
I don't care.
Tell him breathe, bro, Nella nigga to the
You say that because you think if you get rid of that land, it'll fix housing. So you mean it in a good way. I think it's misguided.
Bossy walk around like Tizo. What's up with these jabroni ass niggas trying to see Compton? The industry can hate me. Fuck 'em all and they mama. How many options you really got? I mean, it's too many options. I'm finna pass on this body. I'm John Stockton. Beat your ass and hide the Bible if God watching. Sometimes you gotta pop out and show niggas. Certified boogeyman, I'm the one that up to score with him. Walk him down whole time, I know he got some hoe in him. Pole on him, extort shit, really the flow on him. Say Drake, I hear you like
Let's go!
You better go to cell block.
And the funny thing is, look at the ball. Like, I don't keep score anymore. It's funny, like I'm not in the league. I don't like playing competitively. I like to be able to like hit an extra ball, use a shoe wedge. So I don't keep score. But like I'm good enough. I basically know what I shoot, and yeah, I probably shot. Well, here's the thing: when I hit an extra ball, I still play my real ball. Like I don't hit the extra ball to play the better ball. I just hit the extra ball to not have that thought in my head. So like I probably shot with the hole in one about a 40. But like again, I don't keep score. I'm not gonna use a hockey stick. No, that's for self-defense. So in the last like couple weeks, I played hockey for the first time in 2.5 years. Got a fucking hole in one. Things are moving right along. Okay, so let's hop into this. Oh shit, I don't know if anybody's at YouTube. If anybody's on the YouTube chat, I'm sorry for ignoring you. What up, Glitch? I had a different window up because I was looking something up. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We are going to hop into the JonBenet stuff, right? I'm not sure what the environmental impact of a golf course, but that's another conversation. Interesting combo, though. Mike Roman comes from the dangerous mix of destroyed old progressive conservative party that only had 3 seats in the 90s, merging with the far-right Christian Dominionists, Canadian Alliance, and more dumb, but still. Man, you should be in my DMs in the Discord regularly. I will communicate with this stuff if you DM me in Discord. Plus, that's where it's the best place for me to keep records. But I there's a number of people in Discord of your level of information that I really get a benefit from. No, you're all good. I'm just saying, It's hard to find people that can lead you to places to look at because a lot of this stuff is just unknown. I'm glad about the desktop. Okay, so let's hop into this. Friend of the stream, One Solved Mystery, every Sunday does a release of an older podcast or series that was done with Jameson, the daughter of Lou Schmidt, and some other people. And I got to say, it's worth going there. It was great to see Jameson there yesterday and get to say hi. And, yeah, it's just amazing the work that people have put in that doesn't come from the authorities. Like, the majority of what is known about this case comes from people not with a badge or the ability to prosecute. And I personally think part of the reason is whether it was to cover up their own incompetence or worse, the Boulder police know what they did, and they know they covered up what they did by framing the parents. And we're going to go over that today, my reasons for saying that, and my reasons for saying I would be willing to, like, do actual accusations that they intentionally framed the parents, knowing they were full of shit, and there's a reason for it. Yeah, isn't that crazy, One Solved? So we're gonna go over the Boulder police, and we've already looked at the Boulder police as far as what like crimes were going on in Boulder, how the police responded to those crimes. We looked at all the press conferences where all the assertions were being made that it was the parents, including you don't have to worry about somebody on the loose, when we know 9 months later somebody was on the loose. So, like, it's such a farcical statement to say, no, you don't have to worry about it. But the only reason to say that is you believe you either know the exact person it is, or you're saying it's the family. And you made it over and over again clear that you didn't think it was an intruder. So that only left the family. And they kept doing that. They did it over and over and over again. And they did it to the media, which is like, if I was John, I would have been suing them constantly. You just put my name out there again. You just put my name out there again. Because in those lawsuits, I mean, he'd have gotten discovery, and probably we'd have had a lot of this shit public if he would have been more aggressive with lawsuits. I mean, Lynn Wood, what the fuck are you doing? Get us this info. Okay. So, before we get into that, though, one of the things that I find absolutely maddening is how many people that are out there doing this that have zero interest in accuracy, that have zero interest in facts. They're doing it for sensationalism, and to me, that's fucking gross with something like this. And with Up Armor and Quills, it's always going to happen, though. Like, this is just how it works. It's always going to happen. Like this douchebag.
Today's
Yeah.
Dude's doing a body language analysis of a filmed show. You don't even know if the timing of the answers they're giving is in line with the conversation. He crazy ass. We're gonna get to that bitch. But for somebody to sit here without any, like, there is zero pieces of evidence that would say Burke knows anything or that he was involved or anything. And none of that matters to these hacks or to the cops. None of it. They just want to do what they're going to do. They have a narrative to push, and they're going to do that. And I just can't stand it. Because if I pause and I see something that somebody did, that wasn't what we were doing. it was something that jumped out based on the things I know, where it's like, whoa, that's weird. Is there a reason for that? These guys will go, look, this thing is this, and he's probably guilty, and they said this thing, and they'll add like, well, the tape from the phone call, and it's all just bullshit. And you're going to see the reason for it, because the cops set it up. Yeah, and it really sucks that they did that, but they did. So before we do that, though, there's all these people out here doing this bullshit. And I came across this one from OneSolve, which we have a lot of OneSolve's videos today. Glad they have all that stuff together. But the catching Freudian slips like this aren't about looking for a reason to ad hom or post hoc justify your theory. I thought this was funny.
Mysteries, exclusive series, genre.
Because this is specifically somebody who does great clickbait titles, and I click on them and I'm like, oh fuck, it's this fucking douchebag again.
Web truths. On this evening's episode, we will be discussing what appears to be a recent Freudian slip by one of my fellow JonBenet YouTube content creators, that being the one and only Nick Vanderbeek of the YouTube channel True Crime Rocket Science, who said something rather puzzling in the opening of one of his recent videos. But as we do, let us turn directly to his recent far-fetched neglect narrative video that he released on January 4th, 2024, asking what does the word even mean? And we are going to flip the script on the word we will be focusing on this evening, as he begins his video with his typical opening track.
When one note is off, it eventually destroys the whole symphony.
And oddly enough, he begins by stating,
hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most inauthentic voice in true crime.
That's fucking hilarious.
Sorry, what was that again?
It's the most inauthentic voice in true crime.
I'm sick and not at work, so what a better time to spend with all... nice. Hello.
Okay, one more time.
It's the most inauthentic voice in true crime.
And since I didn't hear a punchline to that, am I crazy to think that Mr. Vanderbeek may be seeing the error of his ways and giving
That's fucking hilarious. That's so good.
Rocket Science, the most inauthentic voice in true crime.
I'm sorry, what was that again?
It's the most inauthentic voice in true crime.
Okay, one more time.
It's the most inauthentic voice.
Hey, OneSolve. There's a thing called What the Font. If you ever want to actually direct copy a font, which you probably hit it, actually. All you need is a second layer with a offset white on top, and it'll make that thingy. That was fucking hilarious.
In true crime.
And since I didn't hear a punchline to that, am I crazy to think that Mr. Vanderbeek may be seeing the error of his ways and giving the innocent Ramsey family a hard time? Because Nick here, beside the ever so lovely Trisha the Troll Griffith of Web Sleuths, are in my opinion two of the worst YouTube creators for promoting misinformation. And
thank God I didn't see this before, but when I was looking around, with an intrusive end.
This case and perpetuating unsubstantiated accusations against this poor innocent victim's family. However, strange things have happened in this case, and people like journalist Charlie Brennan, who is dead set against the Ramseys for many years, have seen the error of their ways and now support the Ramsey family. Which I doubt will ever be the case for Trisha the Troll Griffin. But Nick, now that you are coming clean to the fact that at least in regards to the Ramsey case, that you are likely one of...
It's the most inauthentic voice in true crime.
This is brutal. This is brutal.
Now could be your chance to finally right all the wrongs you have done to this poor innocent family. And now perhaps you could do something to actually help get justice and answers for this family by using your platform you have created for actual good and not evil. You could stop the whole Ramsey lynch mob thing and actually investigate and report on the more likely intruder did it theory, which most of the evidence actually points to. Perhaps starting off small, looking into prior highly viable but overlooked suspects, such as this man, Bud Henderson, and his wife at the time, Sandra, who each owed John Ramsey a remaining $18,000 on Christmas of 1996 after $100,000 of their theft had been paid off. But Nick, if you really wanted to do something authentic for this investigation, you could actually report on a highly viable and overlooked suspect who once went by the name
David Cooper.
Cooper, and in October of 2000 gave multiple rather convincing confessions to numerous key people in this case. And while the Boulder Police Department has chosen to ignore this lead altogether, Mr. Vanderleek, I am giving you the opportunity to finally do something righteous, because with or without you, I will see that this Daryl Kirkwood suspect is investigated. So please stay tuned for more.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I have a video that is just a video of the Ramsey house. And I don't know exactly when this is from. But obviously there's no candy canes up. There's no tape up. So it's not like a done at the crime scene. I would assume if the police were doing this during the time they had possession, the tape would still be up. So I don't know when this happened, but while we play this, I'm glad Freudian is a subconscious admission a lot of times. Now, it doesn't have to be an admission about the thing you're directly talking about, because it could be ancillary, but still. Pretty funny for somebody that I think is full of shit to say that they're inauthentic. Thanks, Mulder. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. Before we get into how they were framed, I want to just spend some time going over the way I look at things, and hopefully this may give ideas or ways that could make some things fit that don't fit. The way I typically try to solve things is I look at what else could this be. It could just be nothing, or it could be something, or it could be more. The idea that it's either an intruder or the family, I think, creates a binary that's unnecessary, even if it's real. If there were more than one intruder, then there's a lot more to it. When did they come in? How did they come in? Did they come in at the same time? Did they communicate? Like, there are so many plausibilities that I think, even though people investigate the evidence and the information, it's the, like, esoteric, if that's the right word for it, that AI will struggle with. Because it's like data and research driven instead of human psyche driven. Nice, thank you. So, to me, while we're looking at the house, I want to just go through what the scenarios are, what would have had to happen for that to be true. And I'm going to start with the family because, like, I personally struggle to even find ways to include the family in what happened. So I'm going to start with them, which will also make a lot of sense when we get to how they were framed. And then we'll move into intruder and what different types of intruders it could be, what types of relationships there would have to be with the family for it to be an intruder. One of six? I fucking love you, Meatbag. God damn, that meme will never die. That meme will never die. For those of you that don't know, Meatbag, great member in the community. There was a time, God, it's got to be over 2 years ago now, where some right-winger put out a tweet from an old meme showing an LGBTQ flag, and if you put it in a certain layout, it makes a swastika. And instead of just admitting that's what he did, he said, if you saw a swastika, that's your fault. There's one of 6 possibilities it could be. And so that meme has never died. That and the flag, the flag had it coming. You also think more than one intruder? I don't see. Here's the thing. I really don't know a theory yet because I haven't done this exercise fully. So I'm really excited to do this because I don't spend a lot of time giving my theories on things that I don't have evidence for. And until I can make like a 95% comfortable assertion, which means I've got enough evidence that it absolutely can't be described as defamation if I say the person's name and make this accusation. Because you couldn't prove intent, you couldn't prove it was malicious, because there's enough reasons I can show you why I said that. I didn't just say it. So I'm excited to get to do this, and then we're going to get into how they were framed, and then a bunch about Boulder PD. Yeah, I don't know when this was filmed. Okay, so there's like 3. This house, for as big as it is just beat up. Like it's a shame they like redid it and then beat it the fuck up. So the way I see it, the main theories that are out there, the family did it. We'll get into like the theories of the family. An intruder did it that was like somebody that had a vendetta. An intruder did it out of the girl that didn't know the family. An intruder did it that did know the family, probably through like the pageants or stuff like that. And it was just about the kids. Or something of some sort of Venn diagram of those things. A stranger in the restaurant guy. Hoverstock and Oliva. Like there's any number of scenarios that if you try to just make it direct, 2 supposed different footprints found in the basement. I also believe the ransom note could have been dictated, yes. So just the fact that Onesolve said that is part of what you'll see is proof that, like, the police just set him up. And I mean set him up. Like, they set him up. Like, it's that simple. Now, did they do it on purpose? I don't know. When did they start setting him up and why? Not a Overstock, Patrick Byrne? Or I said Hoverstock. Hoverstock was the church guy. Overstock is Patrick Byrne, who is a traitor who slept with a Russian spy for 3 years and was in the White House on December 18th in the Oval Office talking about martial law and seizing voting machines. Cheers. From the get-go, I know, like, literally from the call. Okay. So let's start with the Ramseys. We'll start with the Ramseys. And the theories about the Ramseys. 1, JonBenet woke up at night after wetting her bed. She told Patsy, and Patsy got mad, shoved her daughter, who hit her head. But you couldn't see any visible damage to her head. But at that point, decided we need to cover up what just happened. Because my daughter is alive with no visible head wound. And so we need to cover this up. So, John, I need you to take JonBenet down to the basement. And what you're going to do is you're going to take one of my paintbrushes, grab some twine from somewhere that I don't think is in the house, create a garrote. You know how you always do. Create a garrote, tie her hands up, and, make it look like an intruder sexually assaulted our daughter with a paintbrush. And while you do that, I'm going to concoct a 3-page note. And I'm going to get no fingerprints of mine on it, no DNA. And I'm going to write this note, and I'm going to leave it on the stairs. And then what I'm going to do is first thing in the morning, I'm going to call the police and beg them to help us. And then, after the police don't do their job of finding the body, John and I and all the people in the house are going to conspire to go into a room that other people went to that didn't find the body, and I'm going to find the body and pretend I can destroy the evidence as always planned after I knew they wouldn't find the body of the daughter that I killed because of the head wound that nobody knew existed. Or the other option is Burke did the head wound that nobody could see, and then to cover it up, all that other stuff happened, right? So I don't understand how any of that is the Occam's razor conclusion. They say the head wound came first, but they also say you can't see the head wound. So literally the leap is they went from head wound to murder to cover up, and to do it in such a way that the cops wouldn't even find the body, and that they would write this like they're criminal masterminds of the highest order for Boulder to have put their brightest and best on this case and not have been able to solve it. But not only is it that absurd, after all these years and all the little hints and leaks and statements they've made, there has never been a legit piece of evidence to tie the family other than the family was there. And you're going to see that. I'm not just saying that the cops said it. Detectives said it. So, you see the framing of the family at the expense of the fucking case. And that's so gross. Only 8 to 10 cc's, less than a teaspoon and a half. With that crack. So, it's literally anybody to me that claims John and Patsy did it because of those two reasons it's not credible. And when they use these things as their justification, that is a frame job. And the question is why? To me, that's the biggest question. Why did they do this? Were they just so incompetent that they immediately started covering shit up? Do they know who did it and they immediately start covering shit up? Who knows? So, dude, this can't have been the family. I don't know when this was filmed, but this has to be afterwards. Because why would somebody be filming this And why, like, it's just left in a state like they just ran away. Anyway, okay, intruder. Unidentified male DNA being found under her fingernails on both sides of her long johns and commingled with her blood. Yeah, that they hid. They hid all that, which we're going to get into. It's all pulled up. You're hitting all the high points of today. Probably makes sense as I'm using your videos. Their best with Helga. So, let's say there's an intruder who doesn't know the family, has no idea who they are. The problem we have that doesn't work is the letter. If it's an intruder, then they would have had to and this is something I've thought of in the past, but there's no way this would still be a secret, okay? One weird scenario I thought of in the past was, what if Patsy woke up and the person forced her to write the letter? And under threat of Burke, they went along with not knowing anything. Is that like what I think? No. But like, I'm trying to give you ways that it could be plausible, right? No, yeah, he was being sarcastic. He was being sarcastic. So I think I'm assuming Mulder was being sarcastic. So if it was a stranger that doesn't know the family, somehow they would have gotten them to write that letter, and Patsy would have had to come up with like the detailed stuff about your Southern charm, your yeah, that's what I was saying. Doesn't make any sense. But I don't know who did this. I don't know if it was the police or somebody else. So if it was a stranger, they'd have to somehow get Patsy to write the letter, but not like in her obvious handwriting. And it like, I don't know how this would work. I can't square a random intruder. Yeah, I know it does. It sounds like one of those like Nigerian prince scams. So I can't believe this letter was written like by somebody that doesn't know the family. So if Patsy wrote the letter but didn't do the crime and it wasn't a cover up by the family, then the letter was probably like, I don't know. I don't know how a stranger makes that happen. Now, let's say it was somebody that knew the family and is a child predator. Interesting. Let's say it was pedos with, who the fuck puts milk in pineapple? Dude, that person probably microwaves cats. If somebody knew the family and they did this alone, we know where they could have come in and out of. They didn't use JonBenet's name. Yep. Or know what. Well, the thing about the South that you say, I thought we talked about this. Wasn't he in the South for like over 10 years? If you live in the South for 10 years, saying that Southern charm, super logical. Like, to refer to West Virginia would show you have a deep knowledge. But if all you do is know him from work, and you know he was working in the South, then that's just logical to me. But I know that is a bone of contention for you. West Virginia is the redheaded stepchild of the South. They want to be the South, but the history of West Virginia is they broke off from Virginia because they didn't want to join the Confederacy. So West Virginia's history is they literally did not it's hard for me to read and then remember what I was saying. West Virginia literally did not want to be part of the South. And so, like, they're still bitter about it, just like they still hate the North and the War of Northern Aggression. But to me, when I moved back from North Carolina to Pittsburgh, people would say stuff about Southern charm or Southern hospitality. So, like, yeah, right. So if you think about that, might actually, one solved, give you a potential time frame and time span that somebody knew the Ramseys. Like, it wasn't probably somebody that knew the Ramseys very, very intimately, or somebody that didn't know John his whole life, somebody that was like a top-end business partner that would really know him, unless it also was a personal dig that maybe, like, it is like one of those, like, battle rap-esque sneak disses. Right? Like, that Southern charm may be a dig by somebody that thinks he's a fucking asshole, or somebody that he, like, assaulted, or who knows? Like, this is what I'm saying, is I am somebody that looks for how things can be disproved as opposed to what can this prove. Like, if I have a theory and literally every piece of evidence can be explained, then the theory works. But if there's random evidence that can't be explained, there's part of the theory that's missing. 91, when the Ramseys moved to Boulder. Yeah, so it could, we just don't know. But I do think, like, in my opinion, I think it does kind of give a time frame in which somebody would have known them. Unless, again, it's like a dig, right? Not the only fat cat around. Yeah, like, it seems like somebody that's bitter. Yeah, like, there's little nuances there. But also, there's things about this crime that I don't think a novice who's never assaulted somebody would use. It's just, it's not the logical answer. So, like, there's all these things where it says it could be a predator. It could be a predator with a vendetta. It could be a predator in partnership with a vendetta, hired by somebody with a vendetta. It could be somebody that did this. I mean, normally this type of assault isn't always like sexual the way normal people think of sexual. It's sexual in the non-necrophilia, decapitation and mutilation of a body that is then the thing. Like that, you know, yeah. So, like, it's not the penetration or the sexual act. It's the torture and the abuse that is the thing that becomes the stimulant. That's not the finishing. That's the search for porn that you then take home and do whatever. Like, you don't do it at the store. I know that's a gross ass analogy, but I'm just trying to get in the mind of how this would work. So, if it is somebody that abuses children, it sounds like the mechanism is one that is common to that genre of fucking scum. Is there another place other than that where this device would be even conceived. Where would somebody get the perception of making this device without already seeing it and knowing how to do it? You wouldn't think of, you know what, I should create this. You just wouldn't. There's too many other ways an adult can do that to a child. Like, I can't understand how that happened. Like, is this something you use in another? How else is this device used? Is there a legit use for this device? Is it part of preparing hunted animals? Is there and I don't know, is there literally another use for this device other than torture and strangulation? If there is, I don't know it. So I'll leave it open to the potential that it could have other uses. They could have just said she fell down the stairs. I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's nonsense that a parent would do all this. But I believe this was business related. Mr. Ramsey says he agrees, as do I. And so does Rumble. They could have just said, so I just struggle with any sort of idea that this is a random intruder that has never abused a child. I find it hard to believe this is somebody with just a bitter feud that has the criminal sense to write that weird-ass letter and do this device. Like, all of this bothers me. Used to haul small wood stacks. Okay, I understand what you're talking about. I'm not, okay. Somebody's good with knots. So, if I take all the elements of this crime, right? The note, the window and the door, the method. Oh my God, the spider web. But when was this taken? They're showing a spider web, but this had to have been like a week afterwards, right? They're showing a spider web a week later. This is not at the time. This disc was... Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's the thing. None of this makes any sense. So it's like you have somebody experienced in the process of attacking a child, but also is like a sore business partner with a vendetta, or a competitor with a vendetta. Go. That is likely from close to the crime. That is a cobweb. When you say close, you mean in time frame. After they investigated and intended on coming back later. Oh, well, later that can happen. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't know when this was filmed. That would really help. So, the problems I'm having like, that I think needs solved. And that problem resides in all of the things that I think have to be the case, or are most likely the case. Like, if this wasn't a criminal mastermind or like a D.B. Cooper style crime, then you have this conglomerate of things, which is somebody had to know the family, likely the evening of the 26th. Interesting. After everybody was gone, but there was no. Well, here's the problem. The beginning of it, and maybe the beginning's different time. Unless this is just an image that has nothing to do with it. There's no candy canes and no tape. So, I mean, this could be totally unrelated. Okay, so you need somebody that would get in the house and do this crime. You need somebody that would write the letter and would know the family. You need somebody that knows the house well enough to have done this, because you just had to know the house. Now, could you have gone at that point online and known it? Probably, especially with all the what you call it, the tours and shit that have been around there. So could you know it? Possibly. I can't rule that out. For the house until around 8 p.m. Not from the 26th, but the video is. Okay, thank you. I'll take your word for it. Because you started by saying you think it is, and now, like, you just know it is. So I'll just take your word for it. So you have a bunch of elements. And then you have the way the police dealt with all these things that I just talked about. That if Patsy wrote the letter, but there's no visible ideas of a head wound, what were they covering up? And how do you justify every other? Literally, the only justification they ever give for everything else is pineapple and cover up. Like, they don't explain why you would do it that way when you could do it any thousands of ways that aren't that way. And why you would write the letter. Why you wouldn't just say it was an accident. Like, it's all so ridiculous. It's so absurd. After Ivy had grown up a bit. So, is there anything about what I've said and laid out? Because there's no conclusion. There's no real conclusions. Just like, here's the way I see it, and the things that, like, I need answered before I can really, like, have a certainty of something. There's so many ways I can poke holes in the different things if they're not a combination of a Venn diagram of these things. Is it possible John knows, but doesn't know, and he can't go out and just defame that person, so he can't say anything, but also the police refuse to actually investigate it, so...
Well, I think what happened, and it's, I guess, supported by evidence and seasoned people who have looked at it, is that this person came into our home when we were out for dinner on Christmas night, and then waited until we went to bed and took JonBenet from her room. And
do you think this person knew you, knew
Well,
who she was?
I've told people I don't think I know anybody that could be this evil.
No, but somebody might know somebody this evil.
But we were it was a small town. We had a rather large company in that town. We've gotten publicity from time to time, which probably raised our visibility. John Douglas, who's a very well-known crime profiler, said he believes it's someone that was either angry at me or jealous of me. And well, I can't imagine I've made anybody angry at me.
Yeah, bullshit. Bullshit. He knows that's not true. That's horseshit. See, that's the stuff that bothers me. So that's what John had to say. And we watched this before. But I think hearing it again in this context, it's always good to hear. I believe repetition is the mother of learning. So every time you have a new line of thinking, going back and looking at old stuff that you didn't have that line of thinking before, what's it called? Like reticulum activation or something like that, reticular activation, that allows you to look at something in a new way when you have new information. Not using, no, actually not. So here was Sirowiect talking about this case.
The JonBenet Ramsey.
And he wasn't an investigator, so all of the information he has about things other than the autopsy aren't from, aren't from him doing it.
Because this has been a mystery for a long time with JBR.
Yeah.
I had watched the latest documentary that was out on ABC that happened, that everybody got sued for because they speculated that
they accused Burke, the brother. Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
Why are you smiling? Everybody got sued, and you're like, yeah. He's such a fucking ghoul.
In your knowledge, I'm not going to ask if you believe it. I don't want you hit with a lawsuit as well, obviously.
Well, no. I'll tell you what I believe, because it's in my book. Who Killed JonBenet Ramsey? Get the book, written by me. Who Killed JonBenet Ramsey? This was not a murder. This was, well, technically it would be manslaughter, whatever, but it wasn't designed to be a murder. It was an accidental death that occurred during sexual play by the father. There was no intruder. No intruder.
That's because he's a piece of shit. Doesn't care about facts. He wants money. Just like other people that are misinformation specialists doing it for clicks and money. It's fucking gross.
When you see me next and I have hair down to my waistline, like some of the NFL football players do.
I'm also racist.
That's when the intruder will be found. This is a game. Patsy Ramsey, the mother, was out of the sex business. Stage 4 ovarian cancer.
What?
Next, and I have hair down to my waistline, like some of the NFL football players do. That's when the intruder will be found. This is a game. Patsy Ramsey, the mother, was out of the sex business.
Was out of the sex business? What in the actual fuck is he talking about? I mean, that's a pretty big allegation, the sex business.
Stage 4 ovarian cancer. She followed surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, and the little girl was the surrogate. And
the surrogate was for the sex business because she had cancer.
And the father, penile penetration, not penile penetration, I mean
he's just making shit up.
Penile penetration, finger penetration, digital penetration. It's all there in the autopsy.
No, it's not.
Chronic inflammation, focal erosion, the vaginal vault, the 7 o'clock position, birefringent material, the most common source of which in any household is talcum powder. Put it all together. And then you have this cockamamie note. We represent a small.
So let's think about what he just said. he made the assertion Patsy Ramsey was in the sex business and then replaced herself in the sex business. Well, I get that, but I'm not, like, I hope you're being sarcastic. But that would be like saying youth cheerleading is a cheerleading is a sex industry. It's gross, and it's what do you call it? I can't think of the phrase I'm looking for, but like you're just making people objects for degenerate reasons. The idea that she was in the sex industry, then she got cancer, so she put her daughter in the sex industry, and the dad was molesting her regularly, but the murder was an accident. And what was the last thing he just said?
Material, the most common source of which in any household is talcum powder. Put it all together, and then you have this cockamamie note.
Oh, the note. So let's just say everything he said was true. Why do you assume she wrote the note? Like, what evidence do you have that she wrote the note? And what makes you say they would think to write a note to hide the body in the house and then call the cops? Makes sense. Like, you're literally just saying the family did it and these other things, so, what other conclusions are there? This is why I hate this asshole.
Represent a small foreign faction.
It was the weirdest note of all time.
118,000.
He's literally like just doing talking points. 118,000. His bonus is this, but his bonus was paid in January. So what the fuck do you care about his Christmas bonus that was paid from last Christmas? Like, you're referring to a bonus that has nothing to do with the current time frame. So does she remember what his fucking bonus was? Did he not get a bonus this year? Like, what is just because this stuff is like a happenstance, you're just leaping to, it means what I say it means.
$1,000. You like that number? It's exactly the bonus that John Ramsey received the year before.
Isn't that strange? Like, he's QAnon. This guy's fucking QAnon of the Ramsey investigation.
Yeah, for Christmas.
Not 100, not 200, $118,000.
Now, how do they know any of this? How does Cyril Weck know this piece of information? Where did it come from? How did the media get it? Where did it come from? Any idea?
And by the way, he forgot to bring pen and paper. But no problem. In the middle of the night, he finds pen and paper. He starts to write it. He writes.
No, instead, right after killing her daughter, she finds pen and paper, starts to write a note, rips it up, starts over, writes another note, puts the notepad back, puts the pen back where she found it, gets all DNA off of the notepad, off of the pen, gets the DNA off of the fucking letter, stages the letter. Like, the same thing he says, he could use the exact same thing that he's asserting, and it would sound more ridiculous than what he's saying.
He doesn't like the beginning, but crumbles the paper, throws it down, and then starts to write again. You like that? And then he leaves the house.
And instead, she did that, and then she waits 4 hours, right? Because if it happened at 2 a.m., which is a couple hours after the pineapple must have been eaten, according to them, then Patsy spent 4 hours staging a crime after he staged a murder to cover up a wound that nobody saw.
And by the way, he knew about the room in the basement. The homicide detective is getting there at 6 o'clock in the morning. Never even knew that room existed.
Bullshit. See, he's just lying.
Yeah.
Looking for the 6-year-old girl. Never even knew that room was there.
So why is he doing this? Where did his information for his bullshit book come from? Not his own investigations. Right? The one that told the BPD it was odd the ransom demand was close to his bonus. Interesting. No, but I really don't think it has anything to do with it. But how did the public know? Did the public know because did he come out in the initial interview and say that? Like, that might be a piece of information didn't come from the police, direct, like, to the media. But that doesn't stop the fact that, like, there's endless amount of proof that the narrative that came out came directly from the Boulder PD.
A maid who worked there for
especially because the narrative from Hunter in the DA's office wasn't that narrative.
6 months, never knew about that room. But this outside intruder who was able to get in without awakening anybody, he knew about that room where he took the little girl and he had his way and then he left.
Okay, so explain. Yeah, that's what I thought. So explain, Cyril, how all that happened. Like, walk me through the crime. All you said was these things, a couple lies, a couple pieces of misinformation, a couple truths, and that's proof. And you're just sitting there laughing like a fucking retard.
Usually people who do home invasions spend a lot of time down at the city clerk's office looking up the blueprints of all.
Yeah, and usually people that like manslaughter their children use a garrote and a paintbrush and write a 3-page letter. No, I mean, that's normally how it happens.
All the houses in the area, right? Yeah. Or is that not how it works?
Interesting.
Like, we expect these James Earl Ray, all these low-level knucklehead criminals to
figured out that room.
They're like criminal masterminds all of a sudden. It's easier to believe they're a criminal.
Listen to what they're saying. They're talking about how the intruder would have to be a criminal mastermind, but not the family. How does it apply to an intruder, but it doesn't apply to the family? How? Because you already have an answer.
Mastermind that is to believe that the government was somehow involved. Now, speaking of...
real quick, how did the murder then occur with JonBenet Ramsey? Wasn't she hit with a blunt object in the back of the head? So the father did...
She was hit, but that did not kill her. She had 7 cc's of blood. You know, that's 1 teaspoon.
Okay, so where was the accident then? Are you saying the accident was they were serial molesters of their daughter with a garrote? Is that literally the assertion?
1.5, 7 cc. If somebody comes up right now, even with your...
And what does this have to do with JonBenet and the sex business?
Hat on, sir. Mm-hmm. Or my bald head, and hits us with an object, you're going to have a lot more bleeding. You got subdural hemorrhage. You don't die right away. You don't die immediately. My son's a neurosurgeon. He operated on these people hours after the bleeding has occurred. That bleeding was already caused when she was dead or dying. There was no actual active bleeding. That was just oozing from a little bit of gravitational flow from some small vessels. She was already dead.
Strangled?
She had her collar up. The rope was around the neck. Make sure that there are no marks on the neck. The collar.
What, is he asserting there were no marks on the neck? Did he really just do that? Did he just assert there were no marks on the neck?
The rope came down. The sleeve was pulled on. Make sure that it never touched the skin, so there would be no indication of this. And then when you tie something around someone's neck, then you can inadvertently get a vagal reflex. The vagus nerve, the 10th of 12 cranial nerves coming out from the brain.
So why did he do this? Why did John Ramsey do this and Patsy write the letter? Or did Patsy do this?
One on the right, one on the left, sends fibers into the chest, controls the heart, controls the lungs. When you apply pressure to the neck, that vagal reflex can lead to bradycardia, slowing down of the heart, and then you get cardiorespiratory arrest. That is what led to the death of JonBenet Ramsey. As I say, a horribly...
See, that's like, that part is a fact. The rest of this is nonsense.
A horrible death, but by no means an intended murder. And I don't say this in any way to get John Ramsey off the hook, but to point out exactly what happened. So that's JonBenet Ramsey.
So he made no assertion of why it's the family, other than, okay, let me sum up his pieces of evidence. Like, because he explained the death, but he didn't explain how it was a Ramsey that did the death, right? His evidence was somebody knew the layout of the house and the letter. And he made the assertion Patsy wrote the letter. That's the full extent, right? I mean, is there another piece of like assertive evidence or like explanation of a crime? He didn't explain how, like, why the dad did it or like any of it. Just a fact about how she actually died, about the head wound was not Patsy beforehand. So he's asserting that the accidental death was during molestation and that this is an ongoing thing to molest them, but this time they accidentally killed her. But they're the serial molesters.
Yes, and with that, because the mother is now deceased, yes. He's still alive, and then the brothers, filed a million lawsuits against this. So, yeah. If you're the brother, does he know what happened? And if so, why isn't he coming forward and saying anything?
I don't think he knows what happened. In fact, when he awakened and he came down, and John Ramsey was on the phone with a relative in California, and you hear him saying to Burke, "Just go back to your room." John Ramsey.
Wait. That's not it. The hearing Burke go back to the room is the 911 call. Somebody come get Grandpa.
And he came down, and John Ramsey was on the phone with a relative in California, and you hear him saying
it was Patsy on the phone with 911.
Burke, just go back to your room. John Ramsey, Burke, 9-year-old, 3 years older. He came down. He was trying to find out what happened. No, I don't think that Burke had anything to do with it.
Like, nothing about what he just said is true. So he made up more evidence. None of the 6 experts brought in by the Boulder PD would definitively state that Patsy wrote the note. In fact, most of them leaned away from it. Well, when you say most of them.
Well, turning now to the JonBenet Ramsey investigation, Boulder police.
Well, before we even do that, let's remember our soldier, right?
And my mind exploded. And everything that I had noted that morning that stuck out instantly made sense. And JonBenet was clearly dead. Then she's been dead for a while. I ordered him to put JonBenet down. I knelt next to her and I leaned down to her face. And John leaned down opposite me, and his face was just inches from mine. And we had a nonverbal exchange that I will never forget.
Now, remember, I'm trying to show you how the police framed the Ramsey family. You saw Sirowiec telling a story that he knows nothing about, just making it up, and all his information comes from other sources. You have Clarice Starling saying, I knew at 10 after 1 who killed JonBenet, and I didn't need to investigate anybody else, and I know for certain. And I'm only going to act upon that because I know. I know so much my life is threatened.
And he asked if she was dead. And I said, yes, she's dead. And I told him to go back to the room and to dial 911. And as we looked at each other, I remember, and I wore a shoulder holster, tucking my gun right next to me and consciously counting I've got 18 bullets. What?
They framed the family. How would you possibly know all of a sudden this guy's a murderer and he's going to kill you, and there's still a dozen people in the house? No cops, but a dozen people in the house. Right. So, like, they framed him. This is a little over a year and a half after the murder. Nobody's been convicted. Nobody's been named a suspect. And she's going on air saying the Ramseys did it. And lying about the story in the meantime. Like, excuses that she moved the body and tainted the crime scene and that the police failed. No mention of all the 10 times more failures by the police than the Ramsey family. So we're never going to talk about what we did wrong. We're always going to blame the Ramseys. Like this asshole.
Detective Steve Thomas is trying to shed light on the JonBenet Ramsey murder investigation in his new book. NBC's Dan Abrams takes a look at Thomas's theory and the Ramsey case.
Thomas resigned in August 1998 to protest what he called the Boulder DA's mishandling of the case. And while this is the first time he's gone public with specifics of his theory, bedwetting as a possible motive is nothing new.
Bedwetting. Hey, what's up, April? They were framed from the beginning, absolutely. So, for the idea of bedwetting to be the thing, the head wound had to happen first. Well, Cyril Wecht says it's the parents, but the head wound didn't happen first. The bedwetting means the head wound happened first. So which one is it? Was the coroner right about the cause of death, but it's the same person who the exact opposite cause of death is asserted by the cops? Neither can be right, because you can't have both.
Ew.
So it can't be the bedwetting. It can't be an accident as far as the head wound. The assertions that are being made is of a criminal mastermind of a serial pedophile.
The Ramseys addressed it when they spoke with Katie last month.
It's fucking insidious as hell.
Another scenario, Patsy, that you flew into a rage over JonBenet's bedwetting.
There again, what are your priorities?
Forget how she behaves, forget what she says, forget her answers. For the flew into a rage story to be true, it has to conflict with the autopsy. Can we just get rid of it there? What's up, Joseph? I think it was a cop. I really think they're involved. Whether they did it or they know who did it and covered it up, or they're involved in it. At bare minimum, they're involved at making sure this was never solved. So, if the urine story to be true, then it has to contradict the autopsy, which makes it something that would not get somebody convicted. Like, if an autopsy was presented saying the head wound happened after she was killed, and your main theory is Patsy did it because of bedwetting, and you think the DA is the problem because they won't take that to court, when literally I just debunked it. Do you want him to arrest him for something I just debunked? Surely they have way stronger evidence than that.
JonBenet would have an occasional accident. It was nothing to be alarmed at. I didn't care.
Now, this interview, it says, was almost 420 in 2000.
One way or the other. I would not have ever. It's just ludicrous. You can't even answer it.
As for the ransom note, Thomas says everyone whose handwriting was tested was excluded, except Patsy Ramsey.
This is ridiculous framing and not true. I don't believe.
Not so, say the Ramseys.
There are lots of pieces of handwriting that we have of other.
Who is that? That's not the Henderson kids, is it?
Suspects that match much more closely than mine does.
We had the note looked at by national experts in handwriting, and they told us the same thing. They said it's a very low probability of comparison that Patsy...
I mean, one thing to remember about the idea that police are involved, somebody contacted a friend of the Ramseys, or somebody contacted Ramseys and told them the cops are focused on you. Get ahead of this and get a lawyer. So obviously somebody in Drake's camp let it out.
That Patsy's writing compares very low probability.
Yeah, just like 90%. Yeah.
She would have been the writer.
Thomas also discloses surprising details about the investigation, such as the fact that Boulder detectives broke into the cemetery where JonBenet is buried and planted a hidden microphone and camera a few feet from...
Did they have a warrant? That sounds weird. They literally went to Atlanta to try to capture what the family says at the gravestone without them knowing, to prove they did something. But what evidence did they have at that point? Literally, what evidence? Suspicion. That's it.
From JonBenet's grave, hoping they might overhear a graveside confession.
That was okay. Told him to lawyer up. So why does Mike have such a close connection to the police that the police knew he had such a close connection to Ramsey to go help him?
All they got were some curious sightseers and a salesman who sold a burial plot to an elderly couple. These sort of disclosures and opinions aren't sitting well with many in Boulder. Alex,
did he have a relative on the force?
Hunter, the district attorney who calls Thomas a tormented soul, urged caution with regard to Thomas's conclusions.
He didn't have the background and the sort of the depth of understanding that several of the other detectives did. I don't think detectives ought to be writing books.
That was NBC's Dan Abrams reporting. Well, coming up, we will have a live interview with the detective who was at the center of the JonBenet and who he thinks they.
Because
Patsy Ramsey talking with the Today Show's Katie Couric last month. Well, a former lead detective in the...
It depends if it's a one-party or two-party state, or if they had a warrant.
JonBenet Ramsey murder investigation says he thinks Patsy Ramsey killed her daughter. Steve Thomas outlines his theory in the new book, JonBenet Inside the Ramsey Murder.
But what's the motivation of calling him to protect John Ramsey? Like, unless it was a casual conversation completely unrelated to helping John Ramsey and it was just a happenstance, then like that person from the police likely would have had a motive to call to tell him about John. And that motive, like most likely, it doesn't have to be, but like the motive most likely is to tell him to go protect John. You can't call John directly, but you can call this other dude, knowing who knows each other and that he can go protect John. I mean, it's just a lot of information to ignore.
Murder investigation, and he joins us now from New York. Hello and welcome to you, Steve.
Thank you.
All right, let me start with this. This is
an
ongoing...
like, to me, the first thing that pops up, but this is also a bias, is that somebody in the police department knew that the cops were setting up and framing the Ramseys, and they knew it wasn't the Ramseys because they know this is like a thing and they can't do anything about it. So they want to at least protect the Ramseys so they can have the thin blue wall, thin blue line, but still do something about it. Guy hitting him. That's what I'm saying. Like, was that the good apple? There's a few bad apples. there's like one or two good apples, but not good enough. It's kind of like if you look at the coup from 2020, Bill Barr knew what was going on and he kept his mouth shut, partially participated up until the 14th. Rod Rosenstein and Donahue knew what was going on and they just kept their mouth shut. A lot of other lawmakers knew what was going on and they just kept their mouth shut. A lot of them helped out, and it's all just like this. Every now and again, some good Samaritan comes forward, like the impeachment, like the Mueller report. Like sometimes people do tell the truth, and there's still those inside people. But that's a whole nother. That's most of the other content we do. Few bad apples spoiled a bunch. I know. I like to repeat that too. Like a few bad apples means there's a serious problem, not ignore the real problem. Like, what's wrong with this asbestos and Chinese drywall? Chinese drywall is a specific type of drywall that needed to be replaced. That's not an ethnic slur.
Ongoing investigation, it is still very much an open case. Was it appropriate for you to write this book now, and why?
Well, that's quite a fallacy.
ACAB, assigned cop at birth. So, listen to all the ways he lies about what the police did, and he just frames the family. They're just few and far between, yeah.
Thomas outlines his theory in the new...
It was really nice to see Jameson there yesterday.
Book, JonBenet, Inside the Ramsey Murder Investigation, and he joins us now from New York. Hello and welcome to you, Steve.
Thank you.
All right, let me start with this. This is an ongoing investigation. It is still very much an open case. Was it appropriate for you to write this book now, and why?
Well, that's quite a fallacy that the district attorney is trying to continue to put upon the American public, that this is an ongoing active case. As a matter of fact, I would refer him just Friday. One of his top advisors in this case has acknowledged what many have known for a long time, that this is a cold case, that absent a confession on the part of a remorse.
Aren't you a detective? It's not my fault it's not the active case.
Killer, this case is going absolutely nowhere.
Well, what about the charges that this is unethical for you to write this book right now?
Well, I would say that my tolerance finally ran out for the doublespeak and the hypocrisy.
This is crazy. You met a guy who seems like he's pretty cool. Was saying how Woke Potato banned him. I'm banned in Talorx's chat, so I'm not allowed to even be friends with him. That's why Woke Potato banned him. That's funny. Right when you make a is there an ad?
Inside government, and particularly inside the district attorney's office.
Hold on. I'm explaining you can use you can use YouTube and not have commercials. So sorry. Where was I? Sudov BS book. Okay. So this guy was a detective, didn't solve the crime, didn't get a prosecution, and he's claiming it's not that he didn't do his job. It's that, hey, Joseph, you said the thing about Talorx. I was saying Talorx has me banned because of stuff that happened 2 years ago, doesn't want to unban me. So whatever he does, he does. Like I've walked away from a lot of people like Woke Potato, like Talorx. I'm not leftist enough because I won't repeat the phrases that they can't explain. Anyway, let's keep going. So, speaking of not being able to explain theories and phrases, this guy didn't get a conviction. Says he did his job and can prove murder, and it's the DA that doesn't want, he's vested to not prosecute this case for some reason other than he doesn't have the evidence.
And the district attorney himself, who was not only shoveling case file information to the primary suspects in this case, but to the media as well. And
you guys were leaking to the media as well.
And this was government at its absolute worst. And finally, my tolerance was exhausted.
No, it's okay. It's all good.
And I urge you, read this book, and then you tell me that this was not a story that should have been told.
Specifically, what did Boulder police do wrong in the initial hours of this investigation?
Well, even the Boulder Police Department now concedes that on the 26th of December, in what everybody now can see is a patently bogus ransom note, it was treated as a kidnapping, and a crime scene was not secured.
Whose fault is that? Is that the Ramseys' fault? They tricked us. It's not our fault. These criminal mastermind parents tricked us, the Boulder police. Is that what you're saying? Are you admitting you guys were duped by criminal mastermind? I can't wait to hear all the evidence he has.
Witnesses and potential suspects were not separated and interviewed, and there were just...
So you failed. Like, he's trying to fluff off all the things they didn't do. We didn't do these proper interviews. We didn't handle the crime scene properly. We didn't secure the scene. We didn't stay around. We tainted the scene with all the bodies. Like, he's fluffing it off, all the things they did. Now, surely you can get away with that if you have, like, mountains of evidence and proof.
A number of things that are Police Academy 101. And then beyond that, mistakes continued to be made, and then the DA's office got involved in the fray, and it went downhill from there.
Wait, help me out. Wait. It went downhill from when the DA got involved, right? But wait, when was it uphill? When was it going uphill?
This was not a story that should have been told.
Specifically, what did Boulder police do wrong in the initial hours of this investigation?
Well, even the Boulder Police Department now concedes that on the...
This is uphill progress. Because this was uphill until the DA's office got involved, and then they screwed everything up. When the DA got involved, they screwed everything up, guys.
26th of December, in what everybody now can see is a patently bogus ransom note. It was treated as a kidnapping, and a crime scene was not secured. Witnesses and potential suspects were not separated and interviewed, and there were just a number of things that are Police Academy 101. And then beyond that, mistakes continued to be made, and then the DA's office got involved.
When did they do something right? When did they do something right? Like, honestly, name the thing you did right. Like, just one. What is one thing you guys did that wasn't wrong that day? And one solved. Do you know? Mulder, is there anything anybody knows that they actually did well that morning? They got there quick. They got there in like 7 minutes. Of course, it's a kidnapping, and they showed up with fucking like a squad car to the front of the house. So I mean, I guess just the travel time was the thing that they did right. But we know the family did it.
In the fray, and it went downhill from there.
You believe Patsy Ramsey...
How can you, like, think about this, right? You would have to, if you were trying to solve this crime, you would have to have accidentally done something right. Like, you would have had to accidentally done something right.
Ramsey killed her daughter. What is the strongest evidence that's...
Ready for this? What do you think it's going to be, guys? What do you think the strongest piece of evidence that the family did this? Like, something that is so solid that you are going to go out and write a book and do interviews saying that this is what happened and that it's everybody's fault that this isn't being prosecuted. What is a piece of evidence that could be so fucking indisputable that, like, this is the most solid thing I have? You haven't tested most of it? The most solid piece of evidence. You ready?
Supports that.
Well, the detective certainly wished that this case would have been a smoking gun case or a definitive DNA case or a bloody fingerprint, but it wasn't.
The DA wished that there was some sort of evidence.
And over the course of a couple of years, in what became a 30,000-plus page case file, it was a circumstantial case, and I think a compelling circumstantial case. And if one steps back and takes a macro perspective of this case, I think.
Yeah, she said, piece of evidence, what's the most important thing? And you said, well, if you take a macro look, like, let's just think about where this conversation. She said, what's the most damning piece of evidence? And he said, well, if you take like a 30,000-foot look at this, I think it's a circumstantial case, and it's not about DNA, and it's not about evidence, and it's not about fingerprints.
I think this is not just me talking. The detectives involved in this case, ultimately the grand jury prosecutors, other law enforcement, were all in consensus that the right person and the right people were being targeted in this case, and in particular Patsy Ramsey. But as to your question, what evidence? There's a lot of evidence, but the strongest being...
Okay, here we go. He just filibustered for a minute, and now he's going to give us the strongest piece of evidence that you can see from 30,000 feet. You ready?
Question, what evidence? There's a lot of evidence, but the strongest being the pen, the pad, the ransom note, and the handwriting.
And in fact,
the strongest piece of evidence this guy has is the note with no DNA and doesn't match Patsy's handwriting. So the same piece of evidence that Sarah Wecht had is the same piece of evidence Shitbird has.
let's take a look at part of the ransom note so that you can explain a bit more what you're talking about. We've highlighted the A's. What is so significant about these?
The biggest piece of evidence he has is something that is a faux science that isn't admissible in court, and if it was used, it was overturned. That is literally what he wants them arrested for. Now, the same grand jury that said they could indict also said you'd never get a conviction, and nor do I think they did it.
A's, these lowercase a's?
Well, taken by themselves, certainly an argument could be made either way, but what we found significant was that pre-homicide, Patsy Ramsey was inclined to make what we call these lowercase manuscript A's throughout her writing. And we noted that in the ransom note, this lowercase manuscript A was prevalent throughout, but post-homicide, after the Ramseys were wrongly given a copy of this ransom note, her use of that lowercase manuscript A dropped off the map. And
this is the biggest ironclad piece of evidence. They framed the Ramseys. He admitted they did absolutely nothing right. Then he blames the detectives and the DA. I mean, the DA detectives and Lou and these other people. He blames them, but never says anything they did right. And the biggest piece of evidence about how this whole crime happened and why the family did it is that she makes these A's. That's her ironclad evidence. And Clarice Starling's biggest evidence was that John found the body and asked if she was dead. That is the culmination of evidence they provided. That is the culmination of the evidence in total against the Ramsey family that has been provided. Ooh, it's Christmas bonus. That's it. You can circumstantially say the Pagents make her suspect. You can say the way they behaved. You could say their body language. You could say, oh, his voice was on the tape, and because they're hiding that, that's proof that this thing. There's no DNA, no fingerprints, no blood, no nothing. The entire circumstantial evidence in this case is you believe the handwriting matches and the paper and pen were from inside the house. But everything else was so well crafted after an accident that they would have never known was even a problem.
And she discontinued...
but also didn't happen.
Writing like that.
There's also something you point to in the way that this ransom letter was signed.
It's all in the ransom letter.
Let's take a look at that. It was signed Victory SBTC. Now, what did you make of that?
Well, we never had been able to determine what the acronym SBTC stands for, although there have been many suggestions. One good one concerning something.
One good one that fits my narrative is this thing.
Found in the open family Bible in the house.
And that's not even true.
That night in which some letters corresponded. But what was interesting was the sign-off there. It's up to you now, John, exclamation point, victory, exclamation point, indented, and then an indented SBTC. And we found numerous examples of Patsy Ramsey's pre-homicide handwriting in which we made transparencies. And you
there is actual evidence, but we're going to not use the evidence to solve the crime. I'm going to say the handwriting.
Almost lay them over onto the ransom note, and some found it quite chilling.
Well,
some found it quite chilling. Okay, explain the DNA. I can't. Explain the open door. I can't. Explain the glass. I can't. Explain the blueprint. I can't. Explain the garage. I can't. But the ransom letter. Explain the flashlight. Explain the tape. Explain the twine. Can't. Because I know who did it. I don't care if any of that stuff doesn't match.
Even if Patsy Ramsey did write the note, is that enough to prove that she killed her daughter?
Well, I make the argument what happened in Boulder, Colorado was a sense that where did logic and common sense seem to...
Logic and common sense. That's what we're doing? That is true. Interesting. So, logic and reason is how police solve crimes now. Not evidence and proof. Logic and reason, common sense. Common sense says they did it. Common sense says they flew into a fit of rage, pushed the daughter, noticed a head wound that you couldn't notice, and instead of calling for help, they staged an elaborate murder with a garrote, no fingerprints, strange DNA, and at the same time, she concocted this letter that she now writes differently. They hid the body in the basement and knew you would fuck everything up, and then they would never get caught. That's the common sense that this guy believes in. And his proof is, I think, the writing matches.
I don't think it's that great a leap, absent some big conspiracy, that the writer of the note is involved in the killing of the child.
Steve Thomas, I want to...
So the biggest way you know that Patsy did it is by a 4.5 out of 5 5 meaning there's excluded. 4.5 is like the only measure next to excluded. And that is proof. That's the entire circumstantial case.
I ask you to stick around. We're going to take a short break and continue.
Stand off tonight. What's causing the wild pain?
Actually, it's my throat.
This time on Exciter Rhythmics in now.
We are continuing our conversation with Steve Thomas, a former lead detective on the JonBenet Ramsey murder investigation. Mr. Thomas has written a new book about this case. And if you would, Steve, please walk us through what you think happened on that night in December of 1996.
Well, in this...
Why So Dankness just got bombed. Don't skip the commercials, they're the best part.
What up, Dankness? This ain't the Super Bowl. Thank you. So, what's funny is, one solved. What if the Bible that was left out, what if the person's dyslexic?
In this case, the question I get all the time is from people, what do I think happened? And I offer a hypothesis in the book, 2 pages out of a 300.
Okay, this is going to be the scenario that I've already said can't be true.
160 some odd page book as to one of the possible scenarios that that I thought may have occurred. Certainly the detectives discussed a number of scenarios, but I think mine was consistent with the evidence as I knew it, and took a relatively simple explanation to explain Patsy Ramsey's involvement. And
this is crazy.
And it's quite simple, really. I think there was some sort of explosive encounter late that night between mother and daughter, which resulted in the child being killed, and thus...
Okay, so just before he says anything, for the theory to be true, to recap what I said earlier, for the theory to be true, Patsy got angry, shoved her daughter. After that, even though you couldn't see the wound or how bad it was, and based on the autopsy, it didn't happen until she was dead because of the lack of bleeding. So you couldn't see it, and it didn't happen. And after that, they panicked, right? And in a panic, they crafted the perfect crime, where the dad would fashion a garrote to cover up for the head wound that didn't happen, that nobody saw. And the way the dad would do that is he would tie his daughter up, use a garrote, get no fingerprints on anything, using twine that's not in the house. And he would kill his daughter after she was already dead. and yeah, God blows the world up if you read the Bible backwards. He assaults the daughter downstairs and covers that up and hides the body in a place the cops aren't going to find it. And then, while that's happening, after accidentally killing her daughter and telling her husband to stage a crime that makes it look like it was an intruder sexually assaulting their daughter with a torture device, she's going to craft a 3-page letter to throw them off. And then, once that's done, they're going to call the cops right away. Tape not from the house. Stun gun. Like, DNA. This is all the things they did after an accident and a rage. This is the cop who's partially responsible for framing the parents. Why did you frame the parents, Steve? What was in it for you?
By definition, an accidental death lacks motive. And then I think where the motive came in was in a cover-up that followed.
Now, you...
No. Walk us through that. So, where did she hit her head? Where in the house? And then walk us through the rest of the staging of the crime. Was she dead while John Ramsey made this intricate garrote, tied up his daughter, strangled her to death while assaulting her with a piece of paintbrush. Just walk me through this. And how did he get no of his DNA on her? I'm trying to understand the crime. You literally framed people for this.
Also talk about bedwetting perhaps being a problem that may have led Patsy Ramsey to eventually...
This is not evidence. This is bullshit. This is literally a cop trying to divert attention from their screw-ups or intentional cover-up or their direct involvement. And I still want to know, were the police DNA tested?
To kill her daughter. Tell me about that.
Well, again, let's put it in context. I saw the Ramseys a moment ago, Patsy remarking how infrequent and what a small thing it was, but at least one of the witnesses that we spoke with said not only was it a problem, but it was a problem that had become habitual and nightly in the weeks and months prior to her death.
What up, Monjack?
And this isn't just me talking. Again, in this case, we consulted with highly esteemed pediatric experts.
And all the detectives and experts you brought on that didn't agree with you, you chased them out or got rid of them. It's amazing how he ignores every piece of contradictory evidence to make the weakest fucking assertion that could possibly be made. Literally debunked by his entire theory of the case is debunked by the autopsy. Oh, you think this is what happened? Explain the autopsy.
Who told me that one of the #1 reasons that they saw in cases where parents killed children was a parental rage that...
This is an anecdote, a stat that has nothing to do with... How many of those murders was a 3-page ransom note written? In how many of those cases that the parents did it, was there a 3-page ransom note? How many? They use all this trickery and propaganda to make it sound like they're saying something, but they're not saying anything. This is where lack of media literacy allows people to fall for this shit. Because he's not saying anything. He said so far in this interview, everything we did that day, we fucked up. And we continue to fuck up after that. Right? And then from there, the most evidence we have is I think she did it. I get that, but how many came? Well, that's true. You're just debunking. But I mean, the real question is, you're using a stat. A lot of times this is what happens. Okay, how many of those cases was there a ransom note like here? None. Okay. How many times did the police screw it up like you did in those other ones?
Whose genesis was in a bedwetting or toileting accident.
What's your take on John Ramsey? Do you think he really knows what happened?
Well, and again, I'm speculating here, but...
I wrote a whole book saying they should prosecute him, but I'm speculating here. This guy should have been locked up.
Only he knows, and of course he's vehemently denied any knowledge or participation, but again, I think the Ramseys know more than they have told authorities about what went on in the house that night.
Ramsey attorney Lynn Wood has said that your theory is, quote, fiction, and that he plans on...
It is fiction.
...taking legal action against you. Are you prepared for that?
Well, what I find remarkable is what I think is the hypocrisy. They took advantage of every constitutional right this country...
This is white supremacy at its finest. I'm sorry to tie that in. But I just want you to think about what he's saying right now. We fucked up this case, and they used their constitutional rights. He's comparing their framing of the parents to the parents using the Constitution to protect from being framed. And those to you are like fair oppositional things. We didn't get what we want, and so they're the bad guy. We wanted to violate their rights or hope that they didn't know about them, and they used their rights. So, who's the bad guy here?
Affords them throughout the legal process. And then their First Amendment right a month ago, they exercised and penned a book and named 3 people.
So the unfair thing is their constitutional rights. This is who is making assertions on and who did this, and this is exactly why it's not solved. He's either absolutely special ed, or this is on purpose. There's no way somebody could actually believe this is beyond a reasonable doubt evidence. They tried to hold a body hostage. They wanted to arrest the parents. They wanted to take away their civil rights. They wanted to break the law to prove against their lack of ability or their intentional bungling of this case that it wasn't them, it was the family. And after they had no evidence, they just kept asserting it and wrote a book and went on newscasts. And literally from that day till now, you've never given an account that could even work. The bedwetting theory could not be the case. It can't be. And if it's not for the bedwetting, you don't have a theory. That's it. That's where it ends. The idea that this bedwetting theory exists in anybody that puts the bedwetting theory out as what they believe happened, and that's why the family was involved, is a fucking moron, and you should not listen to them. Recorders on and off during interviews. This is a police corruption, police cover-up story of the highest order. And if I was one of the people that was trying to solve this, the way it would get solved is through a confession. One solves. The way this gets solved is through a confession. The way that confession happens is pressure on people that know things, because covering up is still prosecutable because it's fucking murder. You're accessory to murder. There's no statute of limitation for accessory to murder. The people that will be able to tell you what happened in this case are BPD. And fear of them being exposed is probably the most likely place you're going to get a confession or an actual piece of information that hasn't come out yet. You're not going to get it from a suspect. You're not going to put pressure on a suspect who's been dealing with avoiding this for this long. But somebody in the police department knows what went on. And that's where the leaks would probably come from. The Ramsey's investigating. Yes, correct. This is just what I think. I wouldn't really go for it. Sounds more like a Trump videotape. The thing that makes the most likely sense to answer the pieces of information that we have that could be used in court. You have DNA. Edie Edwards. You have DNA of an unknown party outside of the family. You have boot print doesn't match the family. You have a urine stain outside of the room, likely giving place for the crime scene. You have broken glass by the window downstairs. You have a door open. You have an amount of time to stage the crime. You have a ransom note that requires some knowledge of the family. Somebody knew the layout of the house one way or another. If I didn't say it, there was a door left open. We know the police botched the showing up. They botched the search of the house. They botched the securing of the house. They botched leaving Arndt alone. They botched having non-police search the house again and not actually securing the house. They botched everything. So with all those pieces of evidence, you would have to get rid of every one of those for the bedwetting to be the story. You would literally have to not allow any of those pieces of evidence to come into the trial for this to work. So if you look at how could you do this, well, somebody knew the family. The cops, either through complete incompetence, which would be just a gift to the actual killers, but it's hard to write it off as accidental when they just kept doing it. Now, it's possible it was so grotesque that they just felt they had to keep lying about dumber and dumber things, but they framed the family and covered up all their own actions. Not to mention, we know somebody inside the force that evening called to protect the Ramseys because they already saw it as a frame job. A lot of that points to police being involved, police corruption, a lot of this. Who is most likely to be able to stage a crime scene like this with no evidence? Who are the people that are most aware? Who are the people in the community that are most aware of how to not get caught doing a crime, of how to cover up a crime scene? I wonder who that could be that would have the most amount of information on forensics, latest forensics, that have influence on how the case will be investigated. I mean, that's my thought. The most logical thing is anybody that can leave a perfect crime scene is either a criminal mastermind or a cop. I mean, of all the crimes that are left with absolutely zero evidence, what percent of them are fucking law enforcement? Golden State Killer was a cop. House was cleaned by the overzealous neighbors. Well, and it was defiled by fucking hungry cops without the fucking thought of preserving the house. We thought it was a kidnapping, so we didn't think preserving evidence was important. That's the logic there. We thought it was a kidnapping. Okay, so you don't secure a house during a kidnapping? You don't do a real search of the house during a kidnapping? The parents gave you permission to search the house, and you decided, no, we're good. I mean, how is that it's a cop not the most logical? Or that the cops are involved not the most logical? I mean, I've talked myself into, like, this is my most workable theory, the French door and the Butler door. This is my most workable theory of how this could work out. You need a cover-up, and you need people that are masterminds of cover-up. You put out false narratives like a LARP. You try to control the media. You try to discredit anybody that has an opposing narrative. You attack Lou, you attack the experts. You attack Hunter, who doesn't agree with you. So it's Darvo, right? It's Darvo. You know what Darvo is? Anybody know what Darvo is? Is there like a 1-minute video? No.
According to marriage and family therapist Dr. Darlene Lancer, most emotional abuse goes unnoticed and unreported. And although it is an often overlooked form of abuse, that doesn't make it any less harmful or serious than physical abuse. Dr. Lancer defines emotional abuse as behavior that is purposefully derogatory, controlling, punishing, or manipulative towards another person. Both men and women can be victims of emotional abuse, explains Dr. Lancer. But unfortunately, many don't even realize when it's happening to them. One of the reasons why emotional abuse is so hard to recognize is because abusers will often blame their victims to deflect their wrongdoing.
You know, that's weird to have. If I was going to be a grotesque pedophile and hide in plain sight, being an advocate of children and people that are victims of abuse that maybe I like to portray on others. I mean, maybe, who knows?
A common gaslighting and manipulation tactic called Darvo that you should be careful of. What is Darvo? The term Darvo was first coined and studied in 1997 by the University of Oregon psychology, Professor Jennifer Joy Freyd, founder and president of the Center for Institutional Courage. She defines Darvo as a psychological manipulation tactic that generates self-doubt and mistrust and exploits a lack of awareness in victims and those around them. It stands for D. Deny responsibility. A. Attack. R. Roles become reversed between the V. True victim and the O. Offender. Freyd first witnessed Darvo in instances of sexual assault, wherein those accused would often attack the victim's credibility and outright deny the allegations against them, making the public distrust the victims. In her 2017 study, together with fellow psychology professor Eileen Zubriggen, Freyd found that victims of Darvo often end up blaming themselves and self-silencing. But Darvo can happen in friendships, family relationships, and even institutional dynamics, for example, workplace relationships too. Fortunately, educating yourself about Darvo makes it significantly less effective, helps you hold the true perpetrators accountable, and can stop their cycle of emotional abuse. Darvo in action. Amanda Kippert, editor-in-chief of DomesticShelters.org, describes the three-step method of Darvo manipulation as follows. Deny. Abusers will vehemently deny what they did and gaslight their victims into thinking that they're just making a big deal out of nothing. Attack. Abusers will then attack the victim's credibility by bringing up any...
Look, us cops, we didn't really do... I mean, we made some mistakes, but, like, look at what the family did.
...thing in the past that they can use against them. This is so like you, remember when... Or questioning their victims' mental stability, values, and motives. Are you in your right state of mind? I can't believe the things you're saying. Why are you doing this to me? Reverse, victim and offender. At this point, most victims will often become stunned into silence and confusion. They may even begin to believe what the abuser is telling them, which the abuser will likely take as an opportunity to manipulate the narrative further. They'll make themselves out to be the victim. I'm so hurt and betrayed that you could even think that about me. What kind of person accuses a loved one of that? And guilt the true victim for even speaking up about it in the first place. And in doing so, they overshadow what the victim was even trying to open up.
Literally attacked the Ramseys for using their constitutional rights. Yes, we made a lot of mistakes, but look at them using their constitutional rights to make this harder. To be Taylor Swift. Oh. Disgrace pushed the innocent mother to commit suicide. Yeah, I mean, this is a psychological tactic.
The possible killer of their daughter. Three people whom I believe are clearly innocent people, yet when I tried to pen a book and named three people as the possible killer of their daughter. Three people whom I believe are clearly innocent people.
Based on what? How did you eliminate them? What mechanism, what metric did you use to eliminate them? Common sense?
Yet when I try to exercise that same First Amendment right, they point the cannons at me, and I...
Yes, because you're an officer of the law working for the state who failed to do his job, fucking Perry Mason.
Have to challenge that.
If everything you say is true, why hasn't there been an indictment?
Probable cause was never the issue in this case.
Probable cause was never the issue, but the number one piece of evidence I have, which isn't all of the real tangible physical evidence. Like, there's all this physical evidence that says they didn't do it. But we're going to ignore all that because we have this piece of evidence over here that tells me they did do it.
As a matter of fact, For 13 years as a police officer and a detective, I had never been involved in a case that I can remember in which we did not arrest on probable cause. But due to this case being legally manipulated to death,
the case was legally manipulated to death. What are you fucking talking about?
And all the politics and egos and behind the scenes that was going on, not
Qualified
only was an arrest
yeah.
not made, but the grand jury who presumably saw that same probable cause that...
Presumably, I don't really know. I'm just guessing. I'm just asserting my opinion.
The police had early, through whatever process, it was determined that there was not enough beyond a reason, or there was not enough to take it to a criminal trial.
Well, he didn't want to say that. He didn't want to say that. There wasn't enough for beyond a reasonable doubt.
The police had early, through whatever process, it was determined that there was not enough beyond a reason, or there was not enough to take it to a criminal trial where beyond a reasonable doubt is the threshold.
Final question. On a personal note, do you miss being a detective, and would you...
Did he just admit there wasn't enough? And he just wanted them arrested? Did he just admit that?
For 13 years as a police officer and a detective, I had never been involved in a case that I can remember in which we did not arrest on probable cause. But due to this case being legally manipulated to death and all the politics and egos and behind the scenes that was going on, not only was an arrest not made, but the grand jury who presumably saw that same probable cause that...
So the probable cause, what there was presented.
The police had early, through whatever process, it was determined that there was not enough...
It was a grand jury process, and then...
Beyond a or there was not enough to take it to a criminal trial where beyond a reasonable doubt is the threshold.
Final question. On a
should have arrested him, but also there wasn't enough to arrest him.
Personal note, do you miss being a detective, and would you ever do it again?
I miss the hell out of police work. Cops are the greatest people on earth.
This is such propaganda. This is why people hate cops. You fluffed off all your pieces of failure. You fluffed off every actual piece of evidence. What up, Lee? You fluffed off all the pieces of actual evidence to assert, because there's a near zero match to her handwriting, there's a 10% chance that her handwriting could match, and that gives you proof. You could ignore the DNA, the autopsy, the crime scene. This is so stupid.
I love cops, but...
I mean, the phrase is, you could indict a ham sandwich.
Boulder, Colorado has a seriously flawed criminal justice system. I don't miss being...
You're in it, dude. You're part of it.
A cop in Colorado. I miss being a cop, but I work as a carpenter now, and that's good, honest.
Dude, nothing says I should have been dishonorably discharged than I miss being a detective, but I do carpentry, and it's good, honest work. Interesting choice of descriptive, what is that, an adjective? Is that an adjective where you describe the noun, or I guess the verb? I don't know. Could be an adverb, I guess. I don't know.
Has a seriously flawed criminal justice system. I don't miss being a cop in Colorado. I miss being a cop, but I work as a carpenter now, and that's good, honest work for me.
That sounds like a confession. You know, based on common sense and my conclusions, based on a preponderance of the evidence, if you take a macro look at this whole thing, I think you just confessed to being a crooked cop. I don't miss being a cop in Colorado because this is good, honest work. What's the implication? Adjective is to a noun. Yeah. That's what I thought. So he literally, I love when people do shit like this. He arrogantly went out to blame the family and like accidentally ends with an admission. That's what Rezi did, remember?
Seriously flawed criminal justice system. I don't miss being a cop in Colorado. I miss being a cop, but I work as a carpenter now, and that's good, honest work for me now.
Actually, I lied.
The facial expression, too. And I might just be adding this because of what I want it to be. But there's like contempt or disappointment. Not this, but more like you. It's like a one-sided frown where you're like, well, at least this is honest. You know what I mean? Like, I guess I at least have that.
I work as a carpenter now, and that's good, honest work for me now.
See what I mean? What are you going to do? Kind of sucks. That face is the same face I make is, I've come a long way with my mental health, and I made a lot of mistakes in my life, and it's a shame that I don't get to see my kids, but like I get the role I played in it. I mean, it's that self-disappointment or disappointment in a situation. Good, honest work, but also disappointed that you're doing it. Wish you were a cop, but you're not a cop. But now what you do is good and honest.
Actually, I lied. I've got one more quick question. Do you think there will ever be an indictment in this case?
No, absolutely not.
Nope,
and,
I think I got away with it. Nope, I think I covered up enough evidence, and I think we did a good enough job obscuring justice, and they're not going to DNA test us cops, so no, I think we're good. I mean, I think it won't be solved.
Misleading people if he suggests otherwise, absent a confession in this case, absent
Told you.
A remorseful killer.
Or a cop who feels bad about what they did.
Confessing, nobody's going to be charged in this case, and Alex Hunter knows that.
The book is JonBenet, Inside the Ramsey Murder Investigation. Steve Thomas, thanks very much for taking the time to be with us today.
Alex Hunter knows we'll never investigate anybody but the Ramseys, who we know didn't do it. So, news report on Alex Hunter and alleged conflicts of interest. Yeah, Hunter did it.
After the murder of JonBenet Ramsey, there are still no suspects under arrest. But now there is word that the two sides in the investigation are on the same side when it comes to business. More on this possible conflict of interest from ABC's Lisa Salters in Boulder.
Boulder District Attorney Alex Hunter and this man, William Gray, a Ramsey family civil attorney, both own small shares.
Wait. Who's this guy? Who's this?
ABC's Lisa Salters in Boulder.
Boulder District Attorney Alex Hunter and this man, William Gray, a Ramsey family civil attorney, both own small shares of a multi-million-dollar Boulder office complex, a relationship Hunter and Gray insist poses no conflict of interest.
I'd be dumbfounded if anybody with any serious judgment thought that there was, at least on my part.
Not everyone agrees. The fact that an attorney for the Ramsey family is in business with the lead prosecutor.
Who is he? Who's the guy? Sorry, I got distracted.
William Gray, a
That's not the attorney, right?
Ramsey family civil attorney, both own small.
That's not the attorney that went to his house.
Shares of a multi-million-dollar Boulder office complex, a relationship Hunter and Gray insist poses no conflict of interest.
I'd be dumbfounded if anybody with any serious judgment thought that there was, at least on my part.
Not everyone agrees. The fact that an attorney for the Ramsey family is in business with the lead prosecutor.
Wait, is he in business?
William Gray, a Ramsey family civil attorney, both own small shares of a multi-million-dollar Boulder office.
Dude, that's not in business together. Dude, they're like invested people from the same town. This is so dumb. like, that's the best connection. Not PI Oligra, okay. Or family friend Mike. This is just silly.
This complex. A relationship Hunter and Gray insist poses no conflict of interest.
I'd be dumbfounded if anybody with any serious judgment thought that there was, at least on my part.
Not everyone agrees. The fact that an attorney for the Ramsey family is in business with the lead prosecutor, whose decision it is whether or not to file charges, has raised some eyebrows.
Well, I mean, it could just be like a trust, like a real estate investment trust, where you just have shares of a building instead of being directly in business. They don't explain what it is, and so the less direct it is the assumption I would make until they give more information. Yeah, exactly. Darvo.
The question is one of trust, I guess. Can the public trust that these relationships will not get in the way of judgments
This is what they just did to Fonnie Willis.
made and decisions made in the judicial system?
But in many towns the size of Boulder, it's not uncommon for opposing lawyers to share the same business interests. District Judge Murray Richtel likens it to owning shares of the same stock.
There you go.
Neither side in this case benefits economically from the other side's involvement in the case. So as far as I can see, it's utter nonsense.
Nonetheless,
we're going to make a story out of it. This is stupid. Nonetheless, we're going to run a story about it.
Appearance of impropriety
I hate
is harmful
media.
in a case where there have been so few answers. Boulder police will make...
What about the incompetence of the police? So it's more suspect that these two people happen to invest in the same thing than the cops did everything wrong all the way up till now.
Public tomorrow, the investigation search warrants. Those warrants should reveal why police searched the Ramsey home twice. They could also provide some insight as to why this case remains a mystery.
We know they're incompetent.
Welcome back to Unsolved Mysteries, exclusive series JonBenet's Web Truths. On this evening's episode, we will be discussing a recent tweet posted to the Boulder Police Department's Twitter page in which they state, "We definitely had a lot going on this week at your Boulder Police Department. One of those things was a promotions, swearing in, and award ceremony. We recognized several incredible volunteers."
Yeah, Unsolved's in the YouTube chat, by the way. I think it's a clever play on it.
Victim advocates swore in 5 new police officers and 1 new code enforcement officer, as well as promoted 4 new sergeants and 1 new commander. That's a lot of great people doing great work in our community. Let's tell you about them. Chief of Staff McNiven joined Victim Services Director Townley to help present the Chief's Commendation Award to volunteer victim advocates Christopher, Jimerson, Nolan, McKay, and Kendall for their extraordinary and continued efforts to provide support to several families whose loved ones were killed on March 22nd, 2021 at the Table Mesa King Soopers. Victim advocates usually spend short periods of time helping those in need, but after this mass shooting, their compassionate support has continued for years. The ability to sit in the unknown with families at their most vulnerable and provide stability, courage, and light is an accomplishment based not just on competence,
Crime scene cleanup and bagels.
commitment to the heart of humanity. Advocate Rudy could not attend, but we recognize her service as well. Combined, these volunteer victim advocates have nearly 120 years of victim advocate experience, helping people through the worst times of their lives.
And praise them
Interim
for
Chief
that.
Steve Redfern read short bios about each individual and handed out their new badges before Deputy Chief Ron Gossage swore them in. We proudly swore in new Code Enforcement Officer Engel and new police officers
True.
Santos, Shinley.
That's just the Darvo playbook. Like, when you know the Darvo playbook, it's easy to see.
And McLean, as well as new Lateral Officer Beck. We proudly promoted from the rank of officer to the rank of sergeant, Sergeant Meehan, Austin, Hoppus, and Fitzgerald. We proudly promoted from the rank of Detective Sergeant to the rank of Commander, Commander Wynn. Thank you to all of your family members, friends, community members, city colleagues, and everyone who joined us to celebrate this momentous occasion, dated January 12th, 2024. And that all sounds real peachy keen. However, there is one statement I take great issue with, and that is where they state, Interim Chief Steve Redfern read short bios about each individual and handed out their new badges before Deputy Chief Ron Gossage swore them in. And Mr. Ron Gossage is a big part of the problem I have with the Boulder Police Department today, because as long as someone
Boulder.
like himself is still with the department after all these years, I can't see them actually investigating.
Actually, Monjack, interesting that you said that. What I was supposed to do yesterday when I went and played golf instead and got a hole-in-one. Hey, let's go. I was gonna cover the cave. You know about the cave?
Well, hey, folks, I went inside the secret polygamous caves of the FLDS a few weeks ago, and you're not going to want to miss what I discovered inside. We're wrapping up Fundamentalist Fridays with this exclusive look into a place that concerned law enforcement for decades.
Tiger. Here. Oh, shit.
Hey, mustard on the beat, ho, Debo, any rap nigga, he a free throw, man damn, call her Amber Lambs, tell him breathe, bro, nail a nigga to the cross, he walk around like Tizo, what's up with these jabroni ass niggas trying to see Compton, the industry can hate me, fuck them all and they mama, how many options you really got, I mean it's too many options, I'm finna pass on this body, I'm John Stockton, beat your ass and hide the Bible if God watching. Sometimes you gotta pop out and show niggas. Certified boogeyman, I'm the one that up to score with him. Walk him down whole time, I know he got some hoe in him. Pole on him, extort shit, bully the flow on him. Say Drake, I hear you like I'm young. You better not ever go to cell block 1.
I played for like 36 years and finally got a hole-in-one. So, hell yeah, that was fucking sweet. Where did it go? Where'd the cave go? Where'd the fucking cave thing go? There it is.
Knew that, well, we
people that were trained to use.
Yeah, I was excited as hell.
They would attack.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, I didn't know it went in. I knew it was fucking close because I didn't see it disappear. So I just filmed it because I thought it would be cool to like drive up to it. And then when I got close, I was like, "There's no ball there."
And of course, that fuels all kinds of fear.
Right.
Again,
this is the cave.
Exactly, and that's something that maybe there were some
commercial
or some people that were trained to use weapons and that they would attack if needed. But that was never something, thankfully, never something I experienced.
Yeah. Now, this, you can see us kind of winding our way back to the main opening of the caves, but then again, it goes off in a different direction here.
Man, there's just so many offshoots, so many different directions and hallways.
And this is a completely fortified steel door.
Ooh, look at that.
And then within that cavern is another steel door.
So I wonder if they also had this as maybe a bunker that they would have used if needed.
The idea was that the leaders of the FLDS would go here at the apocalypse or if there was a raid.
Okay.
And then this is kind of eerie just to think of what might be inside of these barrels in this back room, but this is where the explosives were stored.
Did Willie tell you about if he knew when this was all built? Oh, look, looks like barrels of wine or something now.
Yeah.
It was a combination doomsday bunker or retreat in case they get raided by the feds again.
Did he tell you when it was built? Did he know that or not?
You know, I don't know that I ever asked that question.
Because I wonder that, because if it was built for the leaders to go if there was a raid, would they have built it just after the 1953 raid? So that they would have somewhere to go again.
It very well could have been. Yeah, really, very well could have been.
Wow.
And just as you start thinking maybe you've seen it all, this thing continues on.
It keeps going beyond that. So this is all behind the steel door now, or are you going back?
This is all going back out of that room.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That is it.
I mean, it's just crazy how all this stuff starts together. Yeah. I really wanted to get into that, but I played golf yesterday instead, so it didn't happen. which is fine. These things do occur.
Welcome back to Unsolved Mysteries, exclusive series
What up,
JonBenet's Web Truths. On this evening's episode, we will be featuring an announcement originally featured in a recent BoulderDailyCamera.com article under the Crime and Public Safety section, in which they announce Boulder Police Commander Thomas Trujillo retires after 38 years, which has a lot of Ramsey followers screaming good riddance and don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you. But this bombshell announcement article was written up by a journalist named Nikki Andrews on February 11th, 2024. However, unfortunately, the Boulder Daily Camera likes to keep their stories behind paywalls. So as opposed to paying into their tyrannical demands, we will turn to this InfoButteValley.biz webpage to their article
Tyrannical paywalls.
The same date and title, written by a journalist, Shirley Leung, in which she writes, The Boulder Police Commander is best known for his time as a detective, particularly in the JonBenet Ramsey murder case. Thomas Trujillo retired after 38 years with the department. According to the Boulder Police website, Trujillo joined the department in 1986 after working in the Boulder County Sheriff's Office as a reserve deputy and paramedic with the A1 ambulance in Boulder. During his career, he has served as a detective sergeant, major crimes unit chief, Boulder County investigative team supervisor, SWAT team crisis negotiator, training supervisor, Boulder County incident management team, operations manager, firearms instructor, etc. Served as a commander of the Watch 3 patrol, according to an Instagram post from Boulder Police. The post praised Trujillo for his work on the Basemar murder, the Libman murder, and the Jessica Ridgway case. Trujillo led the investigation into the King Soopers mass shooting in March 2021 and helped respond to the recent wildfires in Marshall, Calwood, and Left Hand Canyon. He brought compassion.
Wait. What work did Trujillo need to do on the King Super case? I mean, they caught the guy on the scene. What did he have to figure out? What detective work did he have to figure out? Yep, we got him. Okay, done. Good job.
A chaotic investigation and demonstrated strong leadership for the younger officers and investigators amid tragedy, the Instagram post said about Trujillo's work during the King Soopers mass shooting that left 10 people dead, including Boulder police officer Eric Talley was killed. Trujillo has also been at the center of controversy,
okay, that's fair,
including over a 2022 report that exposed a detective's failure to properly investigate cases. These included problems with communication, supervision, and staffing within the detective unit. Trujillo was suspended for 3 days and reassigned to commander of the Watch 3 patrol as a result of the investigation, and the finding that he and 4 others had violated compliance with values, rules, and general orders.
It's funny, if you work for, like, Amazon and you violate compliance, they're going to fire you. If you're a cop, they just say, don't do it again.
Roughly coincided with the department welcoming greater involvement from other investigative agencies in the JonBenet Ramsey case, which Trujillo was long responsible for investigating.
What's the difference between a priest and a cop?
In October, police denied that the reassignment had any connection to the infamous unsolved murder of December 1996, in which Trujillo long served as one of 2.
Which organization moves them around to protect them?
Lead investigators. In the Instagram post, police highlighted Trujillo's tributes. He has received commendations and recognition from the chief, the FBI, and 2 Distinguished Achievement Awards. The FBI noted his work in the World Savings Heist in the early 1990s, and he received recognition for his CSI work in the 19th Street murder, the Backpack Bandit robberies, and his investigation into the death of a child in 2002, it says. And not surprisingly, the article concludes, Trujillo declined the Daily Camera's request for an interview. And while this article has given a lot of praise to this former detective, he has also garnered a lot of criticism, as was pointed out by JonBenet's older half-brother John Andrew Ramsey, as he posted a response to someone's statement in November of 2023 declaring, and last, Trujillo was only in charge for the past couple of years? He has been involved since day one.
And he was removed for not fucking investigating cases.
I believe disgraced cop Steve Thomas called him slow and ineffective. His words, not mine.
Nice.
Coming from someone as low as defective Steve Thomas.
They contested it in court. Of course they did. Because the longer they can drag it out, the better chance they have of just bankrupting a union.
That says quite a bit about this Thomas Trujillo fella. However, I have my own
anything to not give workers their rights.
Personal issues with Mr. Trujillo, because I know for a fact that in October of 2000, he specifically was given the lead on my suspect, David Cooper, aka Daryl Kirkwood, by the Ramsey's private investigator, Ollie Gray, God rest his soul, under the direction of the chief of police at the time, Mark Beckner, indicating it was in fact most likely Detective Trujillo, who chose to simply ignore this highly viable lead, which led to a reporter identifying the wrong Daryl Kirkwood, while the actual David Cooper, Daryl Kirkwood.
Every suspect on the list, I would research any potential connections to the police.
Kirkwood responsible has been allowed to run free ever since. However, we here at Unsolved Mysteries are going to do everything in our power not to let that stand. So please.
Is there a 3 degrees of separation to the cops?
For more Unsolved Mysteries, exclusive series, JonBenet's Web Truths, because you won't want to miss this.
Was defunct from Texas before joining Texas is where you have those radicals. That's scary. So they were already shit, likely. And then just, like normal cops, they fail upwards. Where's the one I wanted to play? This one. Do I not have it? I don't think I do. That's all right. We'll go with this one.
Welcome back to Unsolved Mysteries, exclusive series JonBenet's Web Truths. On this evening's episode, we will be discussing...
And you should definitely go sub to this channel. This is Unsolved Mystery, friend of the stream in the YouTube chat. And every Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern, they do a release of another premiere of another podcast with Jameson, the daughter of Lou Smith, an attorney, can't remember her name, and maybe another person or two, going over the suspects and from the list and like what happened as they tried to track them down.
A recent article published on this netnewsledger.com webpage titled JonBenet Ramsey Murder. Did police intentionally withhold DNA evidence findings? Written by Julie Bailey.
Not only did they withhold them, but they like ignore them to say the Ramseys did it. Like, you literally have to throw out DNA findings and the autopsy for their story about who killed JonBenet.
On January 19th, 2024.
That's what most detectives do. They try to see how they can solve it while eliminating, like, ways the evidence fits.
Within which the author approaches Boulder's infamous thin blue line and somewhat crosses it as they write. Last year, information surfaced that Boulder police had long been in the possession of DNA evidence that proved neither John nor...
Who wrote that? Who wrote that?
Welcome back to Unsolved Mysteries, exclusive series JonBenet's Web Truths. On this evening's episode, we will be discussing a recent article published on this netnewsledger.com website titled JonBenet Ramsey Murder. Did police intentionally withhold...
Okay, so by recently, this year, I'm telling you, that's the way to go. Start putting some pressure on the cops. If you didn't get an answer from looking for the suspects, go to the cops.
Withhold DNA evidence findings, written by Julie Bailey on January 19th, 2024, within which the author approaches Boulder's infamous thin blue line and somewhat...
Shake the trees. Sometimes if you just shake the trees, shit falls out. But that would be the most productive place that I don't know what has really been done to put pressure on those people.
Crosses it as they write. Last year, information surfaced that...
I mean, if somebody did a whole series on why did the Boulder police frame... I'm sorry, Mayor. Why did the Boulder police frame the family and ignore their own incompetence? Why didn't they investigate their own incompetence? And why did they ignore all the evidence to frame the Ramseys? I think if somebody started to put that out there, it might get some fucking attention. Because I don't think that's been a route that's been taken. And I think I proved today that the Boulder police absolutely framed the family.
Boulder police had long been in the possession of DNA evidence that proved neither...
I proved to a greater degree today that the Boulder police framed the family than more of the degree they proved the Ramseys did this murder. And I haven't been doing this for 27 years.
Or Patricia Patsy Ramsey kidnapped nor killed their 6-year-old daughter.
It's because the police don't want to admit they were complicit or aided. Yep. Sick in the head or in the body.
This day, 1990.
I'm sick with it. I'm sick with it on a golf course, apparently.
Despite having these DNA results on record, Boulder police continue to publicly pursue the parents of murdering their pageant queen daughter in the basement of their Boulder, Colorado home. Moreover, allegations persist. The Boulder District Attorney's Office also purposely hampered prosecutorial efforts in this case. News of the potentially damaging update in the JonBenet Ramsey cold murder investigation comes as a new book chronicling the inside story of the botched Boulder police investigation into her murder hits the bookshelves. In Lou and JonBenet, a legendary lawman's quest to solve the murder of a child beauty queen, author and former El Paso County, Colorado Sheriff John Wesley Anderson reveals evidence uncovered by legendary homicide detective Lou Smith. Smith was an investigator investigator on the Ramsey task force, serving under Anderson as his captain of detectives. Anderson's book details the unyielding detective work performed by Smith and Anderson as they sought to solve JonBenet's killing. Murders were rare in the expensive neighborhood where the Ramseys lived, so Boulder police were not too experienced with handling cases of this complexity. Citing the need for additional investigators on the Ramsey murder case, the Boulder District Attorney's office hired Smith. However, not long into the investigation, Smith became disgruntled with the prosecutor's insistence the Ramseys were involved in the case. He was frustrated that their obstinance excluded anyone else as a potential suspect. R.W. Pete Peterson, a Colorado...
You want more proof that the police framed the Ramseys? The detective left because they wouldn't look at any other evidence if it didn't support framing the Ramseys.
A private detective who agreed with Smith that an intruder killed JonBenet was interviewed for an article about the case by the Rancho Santa Fe Review in 2012. He, along with Smith...
For not being able to use the bathroom. She was taking a piss at the convenience store
untold hours
about the bathroom,
and he came to the same conclusion as Smith. An intruder had perpetrated the crime. Still, the Boulder Police Department was only fixated on the parents in the JonBenet case. Anything else, he was quoted as saying in the article. If it is true Boulder police withheld DNA evidence proving the Ramseys had nothing to do with their daughter's kidnapping or death, they intentionally prevented them from being vindicated publicly. In fact, the Boulder PD continued to pursue the Ramseys as primary suspects. Patsy Ramsey died of ovarian cancer in 2006. According to Boulder criminal defense attorney David Moorhead of the Moorhead Law Group, any potential exculpatory evidence that was withheld by prosecutors concerning a person of interest raises potential issues of police misconduct. Because there have never been any criminal charges brought against any of the Ramsey family members, the rules regarding discovery have never been violated. Nevertheless, ethical considerations are raised if prosecutors withheld that information from the Ramseys and allowed the cloud of suspicion to hang over them for nearly 3 decades. Referring to Anderson's new book,
look,
detailing
Mayor, people are just out of their mind.
Smith's investigation into the Ramsey murder, Moorhead said, according to the author, the DNA findings were given to a Boulder detective roughly 3 weeks after JonBenet's death, but he waited months before sharing with
Think about it this way, Mayor. You know how, like, this is where society is, right? I'm gonna give you a what do you call this? A metaphorical story to explain where we are. So, if you've ever been in like a movie theater, an airplane, any of those types of things, and somebody behind you is kicking your chair, and like first time, maybe you don't think anything of it. Maybe you peer behind you. Second time, you definitely look behind you. And as it continues, like when you look behind you, it was a kid. So you're like, well, it's a little kid. Whatever. They'll probably stop. I can deal with it for a minute. But it doesn't stop. And then you're like, well, should I say something? And then it doesn't stop. And you like give a look back in hopes that like you don't have to say anything and that like the parent will notice. And you could tell the parent notices, but then it never stops. And finally, you're fed up, you've had enough, and you turn around and you're like, please stop it. And that's where like society is. Had you just turned around and been like, oh, hey, little man, I don't know if you noticed this, I'm excited too, but you're kicking my seat. It's really uncomfortable. Like, I'm excited, but can you do what you can to like not kick the seat? That probably would have solved it. But like for our own lack of willingness to do that, we just keep our mouths shut until it comes to the place where we have to yell. And I think everybody is just in a place where we have to yell.
Prosecutors and police spent years with the parents under suspicion, despite the findings. And sadly, that is exactly what has happened. As pathetically the article concludes, this 26-year-old cold case continues to baffle and intrigue the masses. Even though all the Boulder PD needs to do is finally go and investigate the self-proclaimed hitman and JonBenet killer David Cooper, aka Daryl Kirkwood, that they ignored over 20 years ago. Because while it was a reporter, likely journalist Craig Lewis, who wrote the March 2001 Star Magazine article titled Hitman, I Killed JonBenet, who identified David Cooper as this Daryl W. Kirkwood, even though he has been confirmed to have been incarcerated in Indiana at the time of the crime during Christmas of '96. Therefore, it could not have been him. But when approached shortly after the multiple October of 2000 David Cooper confessions, he said some rather odd things that should raise further suspicion in most logical minds. As it is said, he wouldn't admit to being David Cooper, but he claimed to know him and to know about hitmen, which got me thinking. Perhaps what he was trying to put across is that while he is not the Daryl Kirkwood they are looking for, there is yet another Daryl Kirkwood of Indiana, who actually is the David Cooper Daryl Kirkwood who made these multiple confessions and ultimately committed this heinous act. And no, I did not simply find another man named Daryl Kirkwood and am simply trying to pin this on him, because I actually did something the Boulder Police Department was apparently not capable of or willing to do, and I actually investigated this man.
Make a phone call.
What made me believe he is the actual David Cooper responsible. And while I look forward to sharing those findings publicly with you once again in the near future, our hopes and intentions here at Unsolved Mystery are not to just oust our suspect for my viewers' education and entertainment, but to actually motivate or pressure the media and authorities to finally actually investigate this highly viable potential suspect themselves. Because if a simpleton such as myself can see it, they themselves can just as easily, if not even more easily, see that this other Daryl Girkwood suspect checks a lot of the boxes to actually being the David Cooper that made all of those rather convincing confessions in October of 2000, and being the sick puppy monster responsible for committing this heinous crime. But that is about enough of all that for right now. So please stay tuned for more Unsolved Mysteries exclusive series.
That's funny, like Zig Ziglar.
Welcome back to Unsolved Mysteries, exclusive series JonBenet's Web Truths. On this evening's episode, we will be discussing the Boulder Police Department's long-anticipated JonBenet Ramsey homicide investigation update.
I mean, if you look at this from a lens of if they were trying to cover this up, how would they do it? They check off everything.
It was published on December 20th.
It could all be just incompetence.
And brings us through a range of emotions. But going direct to the source as we do, we turn to this bouldercolorado.gov webpage. That is the official source of this most recent investigation update, within which they state, Boulder, Colorado on December 26, 1996. 6-year-old JonBenet Ramsey was reported missing after her family reported finding a ransom note inside their home in the 700 block of 15th Street. She was later found inside the home deceased. Her death has been ruled a homicide. Recently, the Boulder Police Department, BPD, convened a panel of outside experts, Colorado Cold Case Review Team, to review the JonBenet Ramsey homicide investigation. The purpose of the review is to generate additional investigative recommendations and determine if updated technologies and/or forensic testing might produce new intelligence or leads to solve the case. The Colorado Case Review Team spent the past year preparing for the review.
It's
The
wild.
team is comprised of professional investigative, analytical, and forensic experts
just gets
from across
worse.
Colorado, including the FBI, Colorado Bureau of Investigation, Boulder, Colorado District Attorney's Office, and numerous other entities, including public and private forensic laboratories, with expertise in cold case homicide investigations. An intensive effort digitized all evidence to create a comprehensive and searchable database, containing thousands of information files, bringing together more than 21,000 tips, over 1,000 interviews conducted across 17 states and 2 foreign countries, and samples from more than 200 different individuals, including handwriting, DNA, fingerprints, and shoe prints. The case file consists of nearly 2,500 pieces of evidence and roughly 40,000 reports. With more than 1 million pages documenting the investigation, a fresh inventory of all collected evidence was made available for investigative review, which would not have been possible without the assistance of the FBI. But the update continues. BPD and the Boulder District Attorney are currently in the process of reviewing and prioritizing the team's recommendations. To preserve the integrity of the investigation, the specific recommendations will not be made public at this time. However, we are committed to following the recommendations generated from this cold case review. DNA testing continues to be an investigative focal point. DNA testing was previously completed, but the science behind DNA testing continues to rapidly evolve. The Boulder Police Department is working with leading DNA experts from across the country.
Yeah, just normal.
Forensic techniques are used to analyze remaining DNA samples. The evidence has been preserved and will continue to be ready for testing. When there is proven and validated technology that can accurately test forensic samples consistent with the evidence available in this case, detectives are actively taking steps to prepare the evidence for testing when possible. I am grateful for the Cold Case Review Team's independent assessment and recommendations provided regarding this tragic case. Boulder Police Chief Maris Harold said, "We will continue to pursue all leads and explore technology advancements to identify JonBenet's killer. I also commit to providing the community and family with investigative updates as new evidence emerges." District Attorney Michael Doherty concurred, saying, "I am grateful for the hard work and collaboration of the multi-agency group that reviewed the entire case file and presented the case to the Cold Case Review Team. Also, I sincerely appreciate the time, expertise, and input provided by the members of the Cold Case Review Team. As with any cold case homicide in Colorado, the overarching goal is to look at the facts and evidence with fresh eyes and an open mind, armed with the latest developments in forensic science. The presentation and discussion generated hopeful recommendations. Importantly, it also ensures that everything possible is being done to solve this tragic murder." And while they make it seem like they are right on top of this investigation, what I am actually hearing from the Boulder Police Department is that while cases that are far older and with much less evidence collected are being solved almost every day now, the Boulder Police Department is continuing to drag their feet on actually finally identifying the sick puppy monster responsible for committing this heinous act. However, his true identity cannot stay secret.
What if it is part of FLDS and all these fucking child abusing freaks?
Welcome back to Unsolved.
Okay, one last one to show you. Because it's the police trying everything they can, right? They know the Ramseys did it, and they're just doing whatever they can to try to solve it.
Welcome back to Unsolved Mysteries, exclusive series JonBenet's Web Truths. On this evening's episode, we will be featuring a recent article published on the BoulderDailyCamera.com webpage titled
"Legal Battle Over Boulder Police Oversight Panel Members' Removal Goes to Federal Court,"
which was written by journalist Amber Carlson on January 9th, 2024. And as you could hear, we will be utilizing their Listen to This Article feature. So kick back and enjoy the latest Boulder POP controversy as they tell us.
Attorneys on Tuesday morning announced they have filed a new federal lawsuit over Lisa Sweeney Miron's controversial ouster from Boulder's Police Oversight Panel. In May 2023, the Boulder City Council voted 5-2 to remove Sweeney Miron from the panel based on accusations that she was biased against police and law enforcement. Sweeney Miron had just been appointed to the POP 3 months earlier, but her appointment sparked backlash even before it was made official, in part because she had made statements on social media criticizing police and policing in America.
So what?
She had also been attacked.
You're not allowed to criticize police if you're going to be on a police oversight board. You only are allowed to praise the police if you're going to be on a civilian review board. That's crazy, dude. That's fucking crazy. That is fucking crazy. Ramseys shouldn't have constitutional rights. And if you're not sufficiently loyal to the police, you can't be on an oversight board.
Taxpayer plaintiff on
That's
the
wild.
high-profile ACLU lawsuit challenging Boulder's camping ban, but she removed herself from the lawsuit when she was appointed to the POP. Now, Sweeney Miron is suing the city in federal court, accusing city officials of violating her constitutional rights to free speech and due process.
Well, we already know they're not a fan of free speech. They told us.
The city violated Sweeney Miron's right to free speech by removing her from the POP as an act of retaliation against her criticism of police. Additionally, the lawsuit argues, by forcing Sweeney Miron to withdraw from
I just realized the funny irony that, like, Detective was doing the fake news witch hunt. I'm the victim. I'm being silenced. They're canceling me. I can't say what I want.
The ACLU lawsuit as a condition of her appointment to the POP. The city violated Sweeney Miron's First Amendment right to petition the government for a redress of grievances. I am bringing
It's just moronic. All of it. It's so dumb.
Because Boulder not only can be, but must be, a leader in police reform and accountability. We are not a month out from the most recent police killing with no real information publicly available, no accountability on the part of the police department, and no sense of safety or trust between the people of Boulder
Your
and
5
the police
a.m. dinner.
department, Sweeney Miron stated in a news release. It is important that we hold the city accountable for its constitutional violations.
I mean, was anybody ever held accountable for Rocky Flats? Anybody? Was anybody held accountable for Rocky Flats? Anyone?
Will ensure that things like this don't happen again. It will ensure that our
No, in fact, they're probably making a mint off of it when they sold it to the fucking state, or when it became, they probably took eminent domain, would be my guess, which means they got paid for that toxic sludge.
Understands that it must respect the rights of people in our community.
And I'm guessing. I don't know any of that.
Dan Williams, Sweeney Miron's attorney, stated in the release that the Boulder Police Department has a difficult legacy of misconduct to reckon with. When the rubber hit the road, Boulder City Council caved to the status quo by removing Ms. Sweeney Miron from the oversight panel rather than demand a new chapter of accountability for the Boulder Police.
She's somebody worth talking to. She might know some police. Maybe some police talk to her.
Department.
I swear, I think if people have come to a dead end with the suspects, and everybody agrees this is only going to be solved with a confession, then it's the cops. You gotta go at the cops. And if that means going to all the people you've looked at and ask them to tell you about the cops instead of their involvement.
Members' foundational constitutional rights, he stated. The latest lawsuit comes several weeks after a district court lawsuit over Sweeney Miron's removal from the POP was dismissed. But there are a couple of key differences between the district court suit and this new federal suit. First, Sweeney Miron herself is the plaintiff on the federal suit.
Poisoned by the Army.
District court lawsuit was brought by Jude Landsman.
Well, the funny thing is that was like an anthrax vaccine or some shit, something weird like that. But that was the excuse a lot of people made for not taking the COVID shot. And it's like, look, you signed up to give your life to the American government, but you're going to disobey an order for a vaccine, not because of science, but you're just going to violate chain of command for this reason.
Representative of the Boulder County NAACP and member of the POP Selection Committee who helped nominate Sweeney Miron to the panel. District Court Judge Robert Penning dismissed Landsman's lawsuit because he determined Landsman did not have standing to sue.
Oh, wait, okay, that's a little different than what I thought. Okay, Operation Large Area Coverage. This is how they said they were going to do this here. This is how they did it, I think. I think this is how they did it. Was the United States Army Chemical Corps operation, which dispersed microscopic zinc cadmium sulfide particles over much of the United States and Canada in order to test dispersal patterns, range of chemical biological weapons. Operation Dewdrop. This is how they were supposedly fixing the fucking plutonium with a similar type of coverage of whatever. That's crazy. That's crazy. Endless corruption.
However, find that because the city council's decision to remove Sweeney Miron was a quasi-judicial action, Sweeney Miron should have been afforded due process.
That's part of it. I get that. I get that here and on the dog bowls.
Additionally, Williams told the Daily Camera the federal lawsuit rests on a different legal argument than the district court lawsuit. Specifically, it concerns Sweeney Miron's broader constitutional rights rather than whether Boulder followed state and municipal laws when it removed Sweeney Miron from the POP, hence why this lawsuit is being brought to the federal rather than state court. This lawsuit is brought in quite a different theory, which is that under the federal constitution, no city or state government is allowed to retaliate against someone for speaking their mind on an issue of important public concern, or punishing someone for filing a lawsuit against the government to ensure that the government follows the law, Williams said. Sarah Huntley, a spokesperson for Boulder, confirmed the city is aware of the lawsuit and is reviewing the complaint. She said the city will share its response through the court process.
So it will be interesting to see how this most recent lawsuit will play out, as we will be discussing the City of Boulder's Police Oversight Panel a little further in our next segment, while we are honestly trying to give the Boulder Police Department the chance to possibly finally go and...
No, you got to be done with that. Honestly, you got to be done with that. It has to be pressure. I mean, that's all that's left. They're never going to want to solve it. And maybe one of them gets cancer or they get a divorce and the spouse says something.
Do the right thing and finally investigate the highly viable and overlooked self-proclaimed hitman.
All right. That's like your infomercial. But to sum up the great work of the fine folks at the Boulder PD.
And JonBenet was clearly dead.
Oh, a commercial.
Wow. I ordered him to put JonBenet down. I knelt next to her and I leaned down to her face. And John leaned down opposite me. And his face was just inches from mine.
Maybe you can get Kendrick to do a diss track about the Boulder PD, and it'll all come out as just like child crimes of Drake's.
And we had a nonverbal exchange that I will never forget. And he asked if she was dead. And I said, yes, she's dead. And I told him to go back to the room and to dial 911. And as we looked at each other, I remember, and I wore a shoulder holster, tucking my gun right next to me and consciously counting, I've got 18 bullets.
This is such bullshit.
Why did you do that?
Because I'm dumb.
Because I didn't know if we'd all be alive when people showed up. I said everything made sense in that instance.
Tell me about Buffalo Bill.
And I knew what happened.
Do you think your fear was well-founded?
You bet I do.
You bet I do.
There's no doubt.
Fucking freak.
To this day?
Never wavered.
I never even considered another suspect because I was framing the fucking... Oh, my God.
You were afraid because you thought the killer was still in the house.
I knew it.
Absolutely?
Nice.
Absolutely.
1:10 p.m., Detective Arndt moved JonBenet's body from the hallway to the living room.
John Ramsey came back.
I mean, I think if you make Boulder look dumb, you make the feds look dumb for ignoring it, you make the media and the politicians look dumb and look corrupt. Self-preservation starts to kick in.
Into the living room. And he grabbed a throw that was on the back of a chair. And he says, could you please cover her body? And as he's saying it, he's already put the blanket on top
I mean,
of her.
this is literally framing them. She's literally still framing them. I knew they did it. They ruined the crime scene. Forget everything we did. I mean, it's just sad. It's really sad behavior. And, yeah. And the only thing I can think that's not sad.
I see dead people.
Mustard on the beat, yo. Hey, man, this was fun. I'm glad we made it through another Monday. I got stuff Tuesday and some stuff Wednesday, but it's early, so we'll see how I feel. And hopefully Jungler's not working, and we are and we'll be on.
Certified boogie man, I'm the one that up to score with him. Walking down whole time, I know he got some hoe in him. Pull on him, extort shit, bully the floor on him. Say Drake, I hear you like I'm young. You better not.
What's funny is I was all alone, and so I was like playing Kendrick and all the different disses on the round, and this song comes on, and it's like, step this way. And you can't help it. Like, you just can't help it. It's such a great tune. All right, y'all. This is fun. I hope y'all